What if Bella found love again at Christmas, but this time, not Edward? Forks was supposed to be behind her, along with the memories, the monsters, and the love that nearly destroyed her. Years later, Bella Swan has rebuilt her life in the warmth of Phoenix, surrounded by sunlight, success, and a man who promises her a normal future. No vampires. No danger. No Edward Cullen. Or so she believes. As Christmas approaches, the past she buried begins to stir. Familiar names resurface, unseen eyes watch from the shadows, and one chance encounter threatens to unravel everything Bella thought she'd escaped. Because some loves never truly die, they wait. And this Christmas, Bella's heart may be tested once again, but not in the way anyone expects. Bella. I sat back in my chair, rubbing my tired eyes, and glanced at the clock, then groaned. Only another half hour and Patrick would be here. Why the hell had I agreed to go to the party? He knew how much I hated crowds, yet he'd used emotional blackmail to force me into going to a damned party on Halloween. Well, maybe that was a little harsh. He hadn't exactly forced me. I just knew he really wanted to go, and he wanted me there with him. I just didn't have the heart to refuse him. I knew that he loved me, however, I still wasn't sure I could give him what he wanted. We met 3 years ago while I was still in college. He had been persistent, and I guess at first I had been flattered. I still hadn't come to terms with Charlie's death or Edward dumping me so brutally, and Patrick had been a shoulder to lean on. It felt good to see that someone else found me desirable. Charlie. If I allowed myself to, I could still see my dad's photograph next to the highly polished coffin. He had looked so proud and so handsome in his uniform, and both friends and colleagues had spoken warmly of him at the memorial service. I had known he was popular in Forks, but it was still a shock to see how many people had been touched by his passing. My dad had been in so many potentially dangerous situations over the years as a cop and had seemed bulletproof. How ironic then that it had been a stroke that took his life. One day he was there fit and healthy, the next he was gone. I had felt so isolated and alone at that point, yet when Renee and Phil offered me a home, something had stopped me from accepting. I decided that the only way to make a new start, a post-Edward start, was to get away from Forks and everyone who had known us as a couple. My friends had tried so hard not to mention him when we got together that it only made things worse. Luckily I was able to transfer colleges from Seattle to Phoenix, which is where I bumped into Patrick. I think what fascinated me about him was not so much that he liked me or was handsome and funny so much as he was everything Edward was not. He was human, which was a huge plus, with dark curly hair like my dad, and lacked the intensity and controlling attitude that I had found so wearing in Edward. Luckily the silence was broken by the ringing of the phone, stopping my thoughts, taking me down dangerous pathways. That wasn't my life any longer. It had belonged to a different Bella, one who no longer existed. This Bella was more powerful and in control of her own destiny. I picked up the receiver, praying that it was Patrick calling to tell me that the party had been called off. That he had to work late and couldn't make it. Swan Gallery. How can I help you? Bella? Is that you? I recognized Renee's bubbly voice. Mom? Hi. Sweetie, I thought I should catch up with you. We haven't spoken in ages. How's Patrick? I groaned. My mom had a soft spot for Patrick. She thought he was Mr. Perfect, and I knew I would get the not-so-subtle hints about marriage and grandchildren if I didn't head her off quickly. He's fine. Actually, we're going out this evening, so I don't have long. How did you and Phil enjoy your trip to Thailand? I listened as she rambled on about the people and culture and how wonderful everything was. As long as I made the right noises at the right time, she could go on like this for hours. Only half listening, I tried to think of an excuse to avoid the party. It wasn't that I didn't like Patrick's friends. They were nice enough. It was just the thought of the whole Halloween ethos, trivializing things that were too dangerous to be taken so lightly. Unfortunately, I could hardly give that as an excuse without begging to be put in therapy. After all, who would believe that vampires really existed? Not to mention guys who turned into giant wolves. I pulled myself up knowing this was the worst time of year to be thinking about such things. Forget it, Bella. Edward and Jacob belong in your dim and distant past. Taking a deep breath, I gave myself a stiff talking to. Calm down, Bella. You are in Phoenix, the last place the boogman is likely to come. Too much sunshine here. This is normality, embrace it. A. Checking my watch, I realized I would have to cut Renee short and she hadn't even had time to nag, or so I thought. I'm sorry, but I really do have to go, Mom. Oh, okay sweetie, but before you do, we're going to be in the States in a few weeks and we'd love to get together. We haven't seen you in ages and I want to know if I should be looking at wedding outfits or maybe even baby clothes. I groaned. She'd gotten it in, neither, and I'll see what we can do. Send me the dates. Gotta go, bye. Putting the phone down, I wondered why a woman who supposedly knew me so well would even think about me getting married, let alone having a baby. I wasn't ready for either, and I wasn't even sure Patrick was the right man for me. I just couldn't explain why I was hesitant. The trouble was that I set my standards too high. I guess being loved by a vampire and a shapeshifter left humanity at a distinct disadvantage. That frustrated me because all I wanted was a regular, ordinary guy with no special powers or supernatural baggage. Why couldn't I be happy with one who ticked all those boxes and was crazy about me? Maybe I should realize that and settle for what I told myself I wanted and was being offered. A knock on my door heralded Patrick's arrival, and he swept into the room looking like a cross between a businessman and a rock star. His suit was immaculate, his shirt open at the collar and his tie poking out of his pocket. Bella honey, come on, we have to go. Time's racing. Besides, I've got a surprise for you. My heart sank at those words. His surprises were usually expensive and I hated being showered with gifts. They always made me feel uncomfortable. Who's put that faraway smile on your face? I jerked back to reality. For a second I had been standing in the lounge of the Cullen home surrounded by crystal, flowers, presents, and a huge birthday cake. Nothing. I'm just happy to see you. Good, good. Come on then. He took my arm, swung me into his chest for a long kiss, then steered me out of the office, switching off the lights as we went. His bright red convertible sat at the curb heedless of the local parking restrictions, and he opened the door for me before jumping over his own and then took off out of the city towards his condo. Patrick, where are we going? I need to go home first. He smiled over and squeezed my hand. No, you don't. Once there you will find 1001 reasons why you can't make the party. It's like your little comfort blanket. Tonight we are going out on the town. My friends are beginning to think they dreamed you up. It's been so long since we went to any of the parties. I've been busy. He grinned and patted my hand. No. You've arranged to be busy, Bella, which isn't the same thing. You know you'll enjoy yourself when we get there. Besides, you like Tom and Abigail. Actually, I did. They were the only two of Patrick's friends who didn't make me feel like a hillbilly at a society wedding. I knew it was stupid. I could hold my own against the rich and semi-famous. I just chose not to, if at all possible. We were soon at Patrick's place and he left the car out front, meaning we weren't going to be here long. Hugo came bounding up, tail wagging furiously as we opened the door, and I took a moment to give him some love before Patrick tugged me up the sweeping staircase to the bedroom. Close your eyes. I frowned. Why? Kissing me, he pulled a face. Humor me. Remember, I have a surprise for you. Groaning, I closed my eyes and heard him open the bedroom door. Well, at least it wasn't a car or a horse. The last time he decided to surprise me, he had bought Hugo, the huge dog which now lived in his yard and ate half a cow each week according to Patrick's cleaner. Okay, you can open them now. I did so, not without some trepidation, to see a long clothes bag hanging on the back of the door. Puzzled, I turned to him and he laughed. Don't look so stunned. Remember, we're going to a party? Yes, I know, and I had a dress ready waiting at home. He pulled a face and suddenly looked a little nervous. I know, but there's something I forgot to tell you. Abigail rang me a few days ago to say they had a change of plans. The party now has a theme. A theme? What kind of theme? My voice was tinged with apprehension. Yeah. They've hired a new events planner who was offering to set up a themed evening very reasonably in return for the publicity. Abigail couldn't resist. What kind of theme, Patrick? A Halloween party. His answer was almost a whisper, and as the ramification of this sank in, I shook my head. No. No way. He grimaced. I knew you'd say that. Look, I could hardly get out of it at this late hour, so I asked Stella to run out at lunchtime and rent you an outfit. Nothing naughty, no blood-soaked hooker nurse or anything like that. I think you'll like it. My spirits had sunk to rock bottom. You know how I feel about Halloween and all that crap. He put his hands on my shoulders and smiled reassuringly. I know, but it's only for a few hours. You never did tell me why though. Most people enjoy being someone else for a while and letting off steam. Take a look, you even have a fan you can use to hide behind. Patrick, I don't feel at all comfortable about this. Oh, come on, Bella. You don't want to disappoint our friends, do you? Besides, you can hardly be the only one not in costume. That would make you stick out, and I know how much you'd hate that. Feeling disgruntled, I watched as he pulled the zipper down theatrically to reveal my costume and then relaxed a little. It was quite pretty, not creepy at all, although I could see 1,000 ways it could go wrong. Me in a full-length ball gown and heels. 10 minutes later he was zipping me up and smiling broadly beneath the Errol Flynn mustache he was now wearing. Well, madame, what do you think? I stared at myself in the full-length mirror, and Marie Antoinette stared back, complete with powdered wig, rugged cheeks and beauty spots. Deciding that as I couldn't get out of this now, I would make the best of it and fluttered my fan coyly. I think I like your outfit better. He grinned, jumping onto the bed and cutting the air with his fake blade until his boot heel caught up in the comforter and he tumbled onto the floor, cursing and laughing at the same time. It was then I realized why I liked him so much. He was fun and had no problem with laughing at himself. We could swap, but it's not that kind of party. Now, are you ready? Just one thing, Patrick. How am I going to get into your car dressed like this? I gestured to the full skirt of my costume. Never fear, sweet maiden, I have come prepared. Behold. He pulled out a can opener and flourished it in the air, and we both started to laugh. Suddenly I didn't feel so nervous anymore. The dress did prove a little problematic, but once I had squeezed and we took off, and by the time we hit the highway I began to relax and think that the evening might not be that bad after all. By the time we arrived at the party, I was determined to enjoy myself. Patrick had a way of making me feel at ease wherever we were, and I held his hand tightly as we left the car. The valet who took Patrick's keys was dressed in a Confederate Army uniform complete with blood-stained bandages swathed around his head. As we walked away I couldn't resist glancing back over my shoulder. What's wrong, Bella? Did you forget something? I turned back, shaking my head in reply to Patrick's question. I couldn't say why, but something had drawn my attention to the valet and I checked again. This time he was gone, and pushing aside the nagging feeling that I'd missed something I checked out the other guests in their costumes. Most were like ours, fancy dress rather than Halloween costumes, although there were a smattering of Draculas, zombies and Frankensteins. Joining the other guests in the grounds of the house, we soon found our hosts and were warmly welcomed before being introduced to Abigail's sister and her latest beau, a young football player with shoulders that would have given Frankenstein a run for his money and the bluest eyes I had ever seen. Abigail had told me that her sister Chelsea had once gone out with Patrick but found him too strong a character for her. I wasn't sure what she meant by this, but from the look in her eyes as she stared at him, she still had feelings for him, and I wondered if it had been Patrick who had ended the relationship and not her. I had to admit that whoever organized this party had done a great job. The music was low-key and atmospheric, helped by the low-lying mist from a hidden fog machine. There were a few Halloween games that appeared to be a great hit with those who had been here a little longer and were better lubricated. It was hilarious to see a mummy trying to bob for apples without getting his bandages wet, although the red wine which replaced the usual water only served to stain his white bandages crimson. He might not get an apple, but if he wasn't careful he was certainly going to get even drunker. I tried my luck at betting on the spider races. I have no idea who the poor people dressed in huge spider costumes were, but they had to have been sweating by the time they had run the length of the course a few times. My spider won, and I was presented with a silver spider brooch which I reluctantly allowed Patrick to pin to my gown. I wasn't a fan of spiders, even fake ones, and watching the race had made me want to turn tail and run. The food was excellent as always. Abigail knew all the best people, whether they be caterers or business people. I had met her and her husband Tom through Patrick. They were childhood friends when all three lived in San Francisco. Abigail's parents were loaded, as were Patrick's, and probably funded their endeavors. Patrick was a stockbroker like Tom, and Abigail sat on lots of committees as well as dabbling in antiques. I rationed myself to one drink after sampling the punch on offer. I was a novice compared to most here who could down pints of this stuff without it becoming noticeable, while two would have had me falling over my dress hem and babbling incoherently. Patrick didn't drink at all, so at least he never put any pressure on me or ridiculed my inability to hold my liquor. I still felt a little unsettled and knew this was not going to be one of my best evenings. I had been relaxed until we got here, so it must have been something since I arrived that put me on edge. Spiders probably. I should have avoided the giant ones. Life at home just wasn't the same any longer, and Carlisle and I saw the reasons for this very differently, which caused terrible arguments. While Jasper and I felt guilty about leaving Bella behind, Carlisle, Rosalie and Edward seemed content to leave things to fate, while Emmett, keen to keep the peace, sat on the fence. Even after Alice had seen several different scenarios in which Victoria pursued Bella in revenge for the death of her mate, each one ending in Bella's death, Carlisle had stubbornly insisted that it was none of our business. But Carlisle. She wouldn't be in this situation if not for us. We cannot be held responsible for the life of every human we come into contact with. Bella got herself into this mess by slipping out of the hotel in Phoenix to meet James. If she'd stayed where she was and told Jasper, he could have hunted James down and killed him without her ending up in the ER. Then he and his friends could have found Victoria and sorted that mess out too. Instead, he chose to stand by while she was almost murdered. Bella is stubborn, and if you tried to warn her that she was in danger, she would probably tell you to go to hell or call on her childhood friends to help her out. Do you think that Edward is going to accept responsibility for her safety now he's moved on? No. And neither should we. He blamed Jasper for all of it. Well, Jasper and possibly Alice. It was Alice who had suggested the baseball game and who had failed to see the arrival of the nomads. As for poor Jasper, he had offered to take Bella to Phoenix to keep her safe and blamed himself when she eluded his watch and was almost killed. He continued to take responsibility for the danger Bella was in. Even after Edward had abandoned her in Forks and insisted that we leave immediately without even a word of goodbye. I know most of us felt bad about that. To compensate for his guilt, Jasper had continued to watch over Bella even though it infuriated both Carlisle and Edward. It was he who discovered that Victoria was hell-bent on revenge. He and his friends had tracked down Victoria only to discover that once she realized she was in danger, she had begged Laurent and a friend to find and kill Bella if anything happened to her. I hadn't realized at the time just how much Bella had affected my family, but I soon discovered the truth. When Jasper asked Alice to help him keep watching for Bella's future, he didn't seem to understand that she was jealous. Had she seen something none of us did? Or was she just not willing to share his attention with another woman? In the long run, it didn't really matter. Alice had seen something in her future, and after a farewell meeting with Jasper, she had left. Jasper was shocked, but I think maybe he had known things weren't right between them. Anyhow, he continued to watch over Bella even after Charlie's death when she moved to college in Phoenix. Then came the next blow. Emmett told Rose that he thought Jasper was right and wanted to help. She was dead set against becoming involved, and the two had some terrible arguments before he finally backed down. It had, however, unsettled them, and a few weeks later they left for one of their long adventures. I missed them, but they kept in touch and I prayed they would come home soon. The house was so empty, with Edward living in France with his new wife, leaving Carlisle and me to rattle around the huge space. Then Edward and his wife decided to visit, and while he and Carlyle spent a lot of time closeted together, I was left with Sasha for company. Now, I'm not a judgmental person and I like to think I'm easy to get along with, but there was something about Sasha that I just couldn't take to. I had done my best to welcome her into the family, but she made it so difficult. Sasha was self-absorbed and easily bored, and even I could only take so many shopping expeditions. Sasha loved clothes and jewelry very much like Alice, but unlike Alice, she was untrustworthy. She would steal from the boutiques we visited rather than pay for the things she wanted, and laughed scornfully when I approached her about it. Unfortunately, that wasn't the only difference between us. Since meeting Edward, she had tried to live like us, as a vegetarian, but was finding it difficult. Mainly because she couldn't understand why we bothered so much about ate herd, as she insisted on calling the humans around her. Renesmee are so quaint and old-fashioned. Do you see the herd bothering about the animals they kill to eat? Why should I concern myself with their feelings? Are their pathetic lives? Even Edward is beginning to see more clearly now. Carlyle really did a number on him, and I'll be honest with you, I was against coming to stay here. I think you are a bad influence on him. He's a vampire, and vampires live on blood, human blood. It's as simple as that. Anything else is just weird. I told Carlyle about these problems and my suspicion that Edward might be hunting humans again, and waited impatiently for him to confront Edward, but he chose to ignore me. As always, his precious first son could do no wrong, even when his actions went against everything Carlyle believed in. Then, out of the blue, Jasper contacted me to ask if I could spare a few weeks to help him. It appeared that his friends Peter and Charlotte, who had been working with him, had prior commitments, and he was having difficulties hunting without leaving Bella unguarded. I wanted to feel useful again, although I admit that the thought of getting some distance from Sasha also held great appeal. The trouble was that I doubted Carlyle would be happy with what I was about to propose. When I told him that I was thinking about going away for a few weeks, he became instantly critical. What about Edward and Sasha? You can't just walk out on our guests. Pointing out that they were family, not guests, he didn't have much more to say on that score. But when I continued by telling him where I was going and why, he hit the roof. I was told in no uncertain terms that it was none of my business and I should be taking care of my family, not turning my back on it. You already know how I feel about the Bella business, Asm. We need to forget about her and thank God that Edward finally found happiness. He's family. Jasper and Bella are not. I forbid you to go, I need you here. I stared at him incredulously, sure that I had heard him wrongly. I'm sorry. His jaw set as he continued bitterly, you heard me, Asm. Your place is here with me. Forget about Bella and try harder to make Sasha welcome. If she and Edward leave, it will be all your fault. Why can't you be happy for him? He is your son, or have you forgotten that? He's very upset at the way you think of his wife. He feels that you are comparing Sasha to Bella, which is both childish and extremely unfair and hurtful. I could feel my ire building. Well, maybe he should stay out of my head then, Carlyle. That's unfair. He can't help it if he hears that you view his wife with contempt. Contempt? Is that what he told you? Perhaps you should ask him how she views us. Has he told you that she thinks we are a bad influence on her husband? That she doesn't give a damn about our way of life? You are being ridiculous. She just needs time to adjust to our way of thinking. It was hard for all of you in the beginning. As for me being a bad influence, well, you've got that the wrong way round. If anything, she feels you are the one causing problems between her and Edward. I laughed. How naive can you be? She'll never think the way we do. He stared at me aghast and I shook my head in frustration. Actually, I'm not sure I know what you do think any longer, Carlyle. Where did your compassion go? I have no idea what you are talking about. Haven't you? Then let me explain. Since Edward abandoned Bella, you've changed. You don't give a damn about her or Jasper or Alice or even me. All you ever talk about is Edward. How upset he was, how badly the breakup affected him, how glad you are that he's happy now. No one else seems to matter. You haven't asked about Rose or Emmett since they left, or Alice for that matter. You don't even talk to me anymore. Well, what do you expect when all you do is brush aside my concerns about our son? All I ever hear from you is how you miss the others. How bored you are with Sasha. How she's not Alice. I don't know why you don't go visit Rose and Emmett. Maybe you'll come back home in a better frame of mind. Yes, you're right, a few weeks away sounds like a great idea. And I'm sure Sasha will be much happier without me around. He shrugged, just as you wish. Do you know where they are? Although I'd have thought they would be happy for some time to themselves. I do actually, but I'm not going to visit them. Then where? Denali? Phoenix. The word hung in the air as he stared at me in disbelief. Then, amazed that I would ignore his admonishment, he jumped up, thumping the desk in anger. I think he expected that to unnerve me, but I just stared at him coolly. No, Esm. You are to stay away from there. You are not my keeper, Carlyle. I happen to believe Jasper is doing the right thing, and don't you dare try to tell me what to do. He stared at me in shock as I walked to the study door and opened it. Then I turned back. There is just one thing. Be careful, Carlyle. Don't push away everyone else who cares about you for Edward's sake. You might just find yourself all alone if you do. Once upstairs in the bedroom packing, I found myself shaking, but I felt good. For too long I had done what Carlyle wanted, or what Edward wanted. This time I was doing what I wanted. What I felt was right, and to hell with them. I was putting my case in the trunk of the car when Carlyle appeared in the garage. So, you're going then? Don't forget to let me know where you're staying. Or will you be sharing with Jasper? You seem very solicitous of him these days. I couldn't help myself, I burst out laughing. Oh, grow up, Carlyle. You were jealous of Jasper? Really? He stalked forward and grabbed the keys from my hand. Don't you speak to me like that. I'm your husband. I'm entitled to worry about you and who you associate with. After all, your past record isn't that good, is it? I stared at him in total shock. I never expected him to throw my past into my face. How dare you? Go to hell, Carlyle. Snatching my keys back, I saw him flinch and knew he had spoken without thinking and was now regretting his vicious words. I was so angry that I didn't even look back as I drove away. Carlyle. I realized as soon as I had spoken that I had made a fool of myself. Esm deserved better from me. Of course, we had argued before, but never this bitterly, and it had all been my fault. Why on earth had I mentioned her past? That was unforgivable. Embarrassed and chagrined, I made my way back into the house only to find Sasha waiting for me. From the look on her face, she had heard our exchange and was curious but also amused. I'm sorry, Carlyle. I was walking in the garden and couldn't help overhearing some of what was said. I'm sure Esm will be back, she loves you. Thank you, Sasha, but if you don't mind, I think I'd like to be alone for a while. Of course, I'm sorry. I just wanted to say that I think I've been partly responsible for this. I didn't give Esm much of a chance. I think I envied the fact that Edward had a mother figure and a family. I can be quite forthright, even tactless at times. I retreated to my study thinking that Esm had underestimated Sasha. She might think differently to us, but she did have feelings, and the fact she was willing to take some of the blame on her own shoulders showed she was thinking of her new family. Later Edward came knocking and told me that Sasha had spoken to him. I think Esm is being unreasonable, but Sasha is aware that she's been a little too pushy. She can be rather blunt. He smiled and sank into the chair opposite. So, Esm's gone to join Jasper's happy little band on his quest to protect Bella. Did Sasha tell you that? No, you did. When you're upset, I can read your mind easily. I knew she'd been thinking about it. It would appear that we are the only ones who can put Bella in the past. It's strange, she was my girlfriend for a few short months, yet no one can stop thinking about her or taking responsibility for keeping her safe from the boogman. No wonder Rose and Emmett left, they must have been heartily sick of it all. A simple human with nothing remarkable about her, and Esm fell over herself to welcome Bella in. Then when I bring my wife home, the love of my life, she remains aloof. Personally, I think Sasha is 3 times the person Bella Swan will ever be. Slightly irritated by his attitude, I cautioned him. I think it would be best not to discuss Bella in front of Sasha. Women can become irrationally jealous. He threw back his head and laughed. Sasha is too self-confident to feel threatened by a human child. Besides, I never talk about Bella, only here where no one can hear our conversation. I hadn't thought about her in ages. Not until I heard Esm's thoughts. My thoughts the next day were occupied by the terrible things that I had said to Esm. It wasn't like me at all. I had virtually thrown her tragic past in her face and upset her terribly. What had made me act so out of character? Surely it couldn't be pure frustration that she didn't welcome Sasha as warmly as she usually welcomed people into the family. I began to suspect that if anyone was to blame for the odd atmosphere in the house, it was the girl herself. Some people were like that. Their very presence caused discord and a bad atmosphere. If that was the case, then I wasn't sure I wanted Sasha here, although I wasn't sure how I could explain such a decision to Edward. Then it hit me, I was still putting Edward's feelings first, and that was wrong. It had cost Esm her beloved family when I refused to help Bella. Was I willing to risk losing her altogether just to keep Edward happy? No. I had finally learned my lesson. I missed Esm so much and grieved that I had hurt her so deeply. She was my world, and never again would she come second in my thoughts. Not for anyone. Not even Edward. I left it a few days before calling her because I didn't know quite how to apologize or if she would even hear me out. She had been so devastated by my words. Her phone was switched off, but that might be a blessing in disguise. At least if I left a message, she would listen to it. If she heard my voice and was still angry, she might well cut the connection. Esm, I wanted to apologize for my words. I hope you can forgive me. I spoke in haste and without thinking. You know how much I love you. I just felt I was losing control of my family and I panicked. Please call me when you get this, and if you or Jasper need any help, I'll do all I can. Again, I am so sorry, Esm. I love you and I miss you so much. I just hoped that she would forgive me. I couldn't imagine my life without her now. All I could do was wait for her to return my call and hope it wouldn't be too long. The party wasn't getting any better as far as I was concerned, and I suddenly found myself alone when Patrick went to talk to his friends. I wandered over to sit on the edge of the raised fountain and watch the koi swim past, illuminated by the colored lights floating on the water. Who would have thought it? A simple girl from Forks rubbing shoulders with the rich and influential of Phoenix. I still felt out of place even though my own gallery was doing well and brought in more money than I could ever spend. Although I was trying hard to enjoy myself, I still preferred a good book and hot chocolate in front of a log fire to such gatherings. If Patrick popped the question, which I knew he eventually would, could I accept? I tried so hard to fit into his world, and no one seemed to notice the little girl lost screaming from behind the mask. Well, that was a little melodramatic, but sometimes I felt like the real me no longer existed. That my true self had been locked away along with the memories of Forks. Pulling myself up short, I shook my head. No, Bella. We are not going down that road again. This is your new life, you just need to stop thinking about the old you. You aren't the girl who lost so much in Forks. You are a strong and successful career woman with your future stretching out before you. My mind drifted back to Forks and my dad. It had been a shock when I discovered that he had left everything to me, including his life insurance. I hoped Charlie would be proud of what I had done with the money he left me. Maybe a gallery/curio store would have been a shock to him, but on the other hand, maybe not. He had always seen more in me than I saw myself. The hairs on the back of my neck began to prickle and I swung around, but I couldn't see anything to alarm me. Then suddenly the parking valet was there, just on the other side of the fountain, and I gasped in surprise. Are you enjoying yourself, ma'am? I nodded, pulling my shawl around me more tightly. He stood gazing at me. I apologize if I frightened you. Still, I suppose Halloween is the time to do it. No, I'm fine. You just startled me. I was miles away. I shivered involuntarily, it's getting a little chilly. He nodded and moved slowly around to join me. Allow me to escort you back to your friends. He held out his arm, and feeling it would be rude to refuse, I linked arms with him and we walked slowly back to the party. It was colder out here than I thought, even his sleeve felt chilly. Do you work a lot of parties? He shook his head. No, this is my first. It's a new company and my boss is hoping to get some work from it. Oh, right. I guess it must be boring parking cars. I groaned inwardly. Try to make conversation, Bella, not bore the guy to death or embarrass him. Groping for something else to say, I blurted out the first thing that came to mind: I like your accent. I clenched my teeth to stop any more inane rubbish from spilling out. Is that the best you can do, girl? Thank you. I'm just a poor southern boy trying to make a living. I glanced at him, unsure if he was teasing me, then relaxed. There was something about the guy that put me at ease. Scanning the crowd, I could see Patrick with his back to me laughing at something one of his friends had said, and the valet guided me up to join him before nodding to me and disappearing into the crowd again. I missed his calm presence and casually turned around and peered into the crowd on the huge patio, but there were just too many people standing around. I got a strange feeling that I was being watched, and I was sure that it wasn't my mysterious companion, which made me uneasy. Moving closer, I took Patrick's hand and felt him squeeze mine comfortingly. He grinned at me mischievously. I can't leave you alone for a minute before you find yourself a new escort, Bella. Who was he? Just the parking valet. He saw me sitting alone and took pity on me. Poor little orphan Annie. You know there's no need for you to be alone. You should have mingled. I know you can do it. A little annoyed by his patronizing words, I checked my watch, and seeing the gesture, he smiled. Okay, I get the message. My poor Bella has had enough. I would offer to get you home before the stroke of midnight, but I'm afraid it's a bit too late for that. Let's just hope I don't turn into a frog on the way. I thought I'd done pretty well for me, but I was relieved to say our goodbyes to our hosts and make our way back to collect the car. It was the same valet, and he nodded to me as he held my door open. Thank you. My pleasure, ma'am. I hope you enjoyed the party. That soft southern accent was a killer. I peered into his face but could see very little in the poor light. Besides the bloodied bandage over his head and one eye, and the gray makeup that gave him an unearthly zombie pallor, hid most of his face. As he shut the door, careful not to catch my gown in doing so, I got the strangest feeling that we had met before, but that was hardly likely. Patrick drove away and I turned for a last look at the valet, but he had already moved away to fetch another car. Are you okay, Bella? It wasn't so bad, now was it? I shook my head. No, not as bad as I expected, but I don't intend to make a habit of it, so please don't sign me up for any more. He grinned, glancing over at me. Poor Bella. You really should get used to it. When we are married we shall throw lots of parties like that. I have to admit that Abigail really outdid herself this time. I asked her about the company she used. Being a businesswoman yourself, you'll be pleased to know it's run by another woman. Asm something or other. I felt my blood run cold at the sound of that name, Esm. That's an unusual name. I gritted my teeth. Come on, Bella, pull yourself together. It's just a coincidence. Yes, that's what I said, really old-fashioned. I had a great aunt called Esm, or at least so rumor has it. What was her surname? My tone must have sounded strained because he glanced over again. Who? My great aunt? I glared at him and he rolled his eyes. Okay, chill out. I can't remember. What's wrong, Bella? You look like you've seen a ghost. Sorry, not funny, I know. The last was in response to my frown. I didn't like anything supernatural spoken of lightly, and he knew that. It made me feel different because I knew it wasn't all spooky superstition, and hated being reminded of my knowledge and how I had gained it. Moving his attention back to the road, he began rummaging in his pockets with one hand. Hang on. She gave me a business card. It's here somewhere. Haha. Pulling a hand free of his pocket, he tossed the card onto my lap. I stared at it, afraid to pick it up for several seconds, and when I did, my fingers trembled. What were the odds that Esme Cullen, an interior designer, had taken up a new if similar hobby in Phoenix? I tried to tell myself that I was being irrational, but I had to force myself to turn over the heavy cream card and look at the gold lettering embossed on its face. As I took in the words printed there, I let out a breath which was audible to Patrick. "Bella, are you sure you're okay? You look scared. Did someone upset you this evening? That valet, for instance? I saw you give him a funny look." I shook my head. "No. I just have a headache. I think I may have a chill. Maybe I should go straight home." "Rubbish. If you are ill, I'll look after you. I wouldn't dream of dropping you off. I love you, Bella. I know you find that hard to believe, although I don't understand why. You mean the world to me." He patted my leg, but I hardly took in his words. I was busy looking at the name on the card, Esme Platt. So, not Esme Cullen then? Of course not, the Cullens would hardly move down here. It's why I came to Phoenix in the first place, all that sunshine. I told myself to stop being so stupid. Pull yourself together, for God's sake, Bella. I was so annoyed with myself. I should have refused to go to the damn party. Instead, I had gone along to keep Patrick happy, and now I'd gotten myself all screwed up and thinking about Forks and the Cullens again. I had jumped to the conclusion that Esme had to be the same Esme that I had known, and now I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling I had picked up at the party. Patrick was very solicitous, getting me some warm milk and fussing around as I got ready for bed. I swear he would have tucked me into bed given half a chance. I was reminded uneasily of Edward's overbearing solicitude. He sat down beside me and took my hand. "Bella, you're freezing. Should I call the doctor? Maybe we should go to the ER." "No, I'll be fine. I just need to sleep. I'll be okay in the morning. It's probably just a chill." He smiled, stroking my cheek with the back of his hand. His touch seemed to burn my skin, and I flinched, which he noticed, and I was sure the gesture hurt his feelings. "Bella, if there was something wrong you would tell me, wouldn't you? Whatever it was. I know that something upset you at the party. Can't you tell me what it was? If it was that pushy valet, I'll call the company and get him fired." He was thoughtful for a second, then blurted out, "Did that bastard make a pass at you?" I shook my head. How could I tell him what was wrong when I didn't know myself? I could hardly explain that I nearly died when I heard the name Esme because my vampire ex-boyfriend had a mom called Esme. I just felt shivery. That's all, Patrick. Really? The valet was very sweet. He took a deep breath, and I wondered what was coming next. Why couldn't he just leave it alone and let me sleep? Unfortunately, Patrick was like a dog with a bone. He would keep worrying it. "Look, Bella, I know it's none of my business and I'm not going to ask any questions, but I would like to make something perfectly clear. I spoke to your mom, and I know there was trouble with a guy when you lived in Forks with your dad. By the sound of things, he was a nasty piece of work. I would never hurt you. I'm just saying that if something has upset you, then I'm here for you." I groaned and opened my mouth to protest. Renee had no business telling Patrick anything about Edward. She hardly knew him or his family, but he carried on too quickly. "As I said, I'm not going to ask any questions. I don't care about your former boyfriends or anything that happened in the past. She told me you had a hard time when he dumped you, and that's why you were so cautious with guys. I can understand that, but you should understand something too. I'm not like him." I couldn't help smiling at that, and he nodded. "It's true. I would never hurt you as he did, but maybe he was just a young jerk. Who knows? I will always look out for you. I will always love and cherish you, Bella. You need never feel insecure or frightened again." I had to stop this. My head was thumping with the stress of it all. "I know, Patrick, but this has nothing to do with Forks or Edward either. I didn't feel too good earlier. I should have told you that I wasn't feeling well, but I didn't want to disappoint you or the others." He nodded, looking solicitous, but I knew he wasn't finished yet. He seemed to ignore my words and carried on, following his own train of thought. Do you want to talk about him, Bella? I feel he's kinda like the elephant in the room. We skirt around him and I never know what to say in case I put my foot in it and upset you. Shaking my head firmly, I replied quickly, no, Patrick. I don't want to talk about him, not ever, and Renee had no right telling you anything. I don't ask about your past, so please, just leave it alone. I could see that I'd hurt him, but I was in no state to try talking about Edward. Besides, what could I say? There was a short and awkward silence before he stood up, nodding reluctantly. Okay, no problem. You try to get some sleep. If you need anything, just yell. I'll be in the other room. I get the message that you'd rather be alone. I sensed he wanted me to ask him to stay, but he was right. I wanted to be alone, and after some hesitation he left the room, closing the door quietly behind him. After that, I should have known I was going to have a bad night. I had nightmare after nightmare. First I was lost in the forest looking for Edward. Then trapped in the ballet studio with James. Every bad moment from my time with Edward fought its way to the front, one after another, and I woke covered in sweat in the middle of the night. Relieved that I hadn't screamed out loud, I climbed out of bed to get a glass of water. Looking in the bathroom mirror, I groaned. I still had traces of the makeup on from my costume and spent some time scrubbing it from my face. Then I combed my hair and studied myself again. Better, but still a mess. Padding back to the bed, I sat down, staring out through the window and watching the lights of the traffic on the interstate in the distance. I yearned to be there, on my way nowhere, just driving aimlessly. The trouble was that I couldn't run from my dreams and memories. I was trapped in my head with them. Would I ever truly be free of Edward? I was beginning to doubt it. I had tried running in the past, and when that got too exhausting, I made a conscious effort to pull my life together and went to college. I'd done pretty well for a long while. Got my degree and started my business with Renee's help and Charlie's money. I felt that I had finally put the past where it belonged. True, the odd memory would prick occasionally, but I'd not had a full-blown pity party in a very long time. I should never have gone to the Halloween party. I hated people making fun of things that were so real and dangerous, yet I longed to be like them. Ignorant of the bloody reality of the monsters they took as movie and literary creations. I hoped Patrick would forget about my past before it drove a wedge between us, because I knew that it would. There was a soft knock on the door, and there he was, smiling and looking contrite. Sorry to disturb you. I heard the water running. Are you okay? I nodded and he stepped into the room. Bella, I'm sorry. I promised myself that I would never pressure you, and I made a complete fool of myself earlier. Can you forgive me? I smiled. It's okay, Patrick. All forgiven. With a sigh of relief, he came over and sat on the bed. You want some company? I could do with a reassuring hug. I opened my arms and he snuggled up close. I hope you feel better in the morning. If not, I am taking you to the doctor. You were so cold and white, and I don't mean the makeup, even your lips were drained of color. Curling up together on the bed, I soon fell asleep, and this time there were no nightmares. Jasper. I recognized that it had been a risk choosing to attend the party, but I couldn't help myself. I had been an onlooker of Bella's life for so long, it was nice to actually speak to her again. I doubted she would recognize me. After all, I was probably the last person she would expect to see again. Besides, the costume and bandages were a good disguise, and I had allowed my natural southern accent to take over. It felt good to be in an authentic uniform again and become a southern boy, even if it was only for one night. I could sense that she felt something, but it wasn't recognition, and that was all that mattered. I would have liked to ask her to dance, but as a valet, I had strict instructions not to become familiar with the guests. Asma had thrown herself into her latest venture, including strict instructions on the behavior of her staff. When she had turned up in Phoenix, I was both grateful and relieved. I had needed a break to go hunting, but with Peter and Charlotte back in Boulder, I daren't leave Bella alone. I hadn't expected that she would be here for long. She and Carlisle were usually joined at the hip, so it came as a shock when she told me she intended to stay on in Phoenix for a while. I think it's better that Carlisle and I take a break, Jasper, and I'd like to be doing something useful. Besides, I feel at least partly responsible for this mess. Discord between Carlyle and Esme. It was almost unthinkable, and I wondered if I were to blame for asking for her help. Is he still as opposed to my project? Oh yes, he's just as pie-headed on the subject, and to be honest, a break from Edward's obnoxious wife would also be a blessing. I found it difficult to believe that there was anyone who could get under Esme's skin. She was so sweet and caring, but it appeared that Sasha certainly had, and when she explained further I could understand. Carlyle was blinkered when it came to Edward, but he'd gone too far when he tried bullying Esme. It didn't sound like Carlyle, and I wondered if this Sasha might have something to do with the discord in the family. I'd heard of vampires with destructive gifts, and maybe Sasha was one of them. It was a little like Chelsea's, which could influence the emotional ties between people. It was something for Esme to think about when she went back home. Having Esme here was great. I'd missed her since leaving the family, and when she threw herself wholeheartedly into the task, I found that I could finally relax. It had been her idea to start up a business that would give us access to the social circle Bella and her boyfriend moved in. It certainly made it easy to watch over her. The downside was that it also meant more time watching the boyfriend. I had never understood what Bella saw in him, and familiarity hadn't changed my attitude. I was seriously thinking of throwing him to the next vampire to pass by. Esme had quizzed me closely about Bella's life here and her boyfriend. So, I told her about the gallery Bella had opened with the money that Charlie had left her. She's made a good life here and the gallery is doing well. Renee helped her at the start, but she soon got the hang of it. If I had thought about it at all, I would see her as a librarian or a researcher working in the background. Somehow I never saw Bella as a businesswoman. Really? I did. She has a good brain. Never underestimate Bella. I'm so glad she's succeeded and she looks happy with her boyfriend. She threw me a look that I didn't quite understand, but that made me uncomfortable. I shrugged. I guess so. He's a stockbroker. Comes from money. She glanced at me curiously. That's it? I shrugged. There's not much else to say. He has a house outside the city and a muscle car. Rose would be impressed. He likes classical music and plays squash. She threw her head back and laughed. Jasper, you make him sound like a game show contestant. How long have they been together? Since college. She met him at a party. I guess he must have been slumming. I think his younger brother was at the same college as Bella. They hit it off pretty quickly. He was all smooth charm and smiles, and they've been together ever since. And is she happy? I glanced at her. Why was she so amused by my answers? I think so. They have their ups and downs, but he always comes up smelling of roses in the end. So, it's serious then? Was she deliberately baiting me? Did she know that I had feelings for Bella? If so, she was going to have a long wait if she expected me to spill my secrets to her. Maybe. I don't know. Anyhow, soon she'll be free of us, and then, well, it's her life. Oh dear, Jasper. She was grinning mischievously now. I frowned at her. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing at all. She didn't say any more, and I left her to watch Bella while I went to hunt, relieved to get away from the searching questions and wondering if I was better off with Peter's sarcasm. Bella. Ever since the night of Abigail's party, I had felt uneasy, but I couldn't explain why. We hadn't been to any more parties, although I was well aware that Thanksgiving was looming, and despite my hints about a quiet day together, I knew Patrick had clients who needed pampering. Thanksgiving was usually a big social event for his company, and I soon discovered that my day had also been arranged for me. We're using the same company Abigail did for her party. They are getting a lot of business, and we were lucky to get them at such short notice. My mood caught his attention and he hurried on. I know you wanted something more homely, Bella, but you have to understand this is business. Which reminds me, are you having a gallery event this year? I have a business card if you want to use the same people. I think they cover small events too. This was Patrick doing what he always did when he felt uncomfortable, changing the subject. No, thank you. You must have forgotten because I did tell you that I'm having an open evening with some work from up and coming artists on display, but I think we can manage the evening without any help. Did you? It must have slipped my mind. Well, as long as it doesn't clash with our party, that's fine. I decided I wasn't letting him off quite so lightly. I was still annoyed. No, I made sure I kept Thanksgiving free because I hoped we might spend it together. I just told you. I was about to add alone, then decided there was no point. He grinned, my little homesteader, you can manage anything, can't you? I wouldn't know where to start. That was the truth. Patrick would be lost without Stella and his smartphone to tell him where he should be and what he needed to do next. Sometimes I wish I was my own boss like you. I have my brother and father to deal with, hence the large event. My father thinks if it's big and costs a packet, then it will impress our clients. I promise you we'll have a quieter Christmas. In fact, I've already refused a couple of invites on your behalf. I thought we might go away together. My ears pricked up, this sounded more like it, really? Yeah. I thought we might go to the mountains. Maybe do some skiing. I couldn't help laughing. Skiing? Again? I nearly broke my leg last time and the bruises took forever to fade. Are you hoping for something more spectacular this year? He frowned. No, of course not. We can stay on the nursery slopes. I just thought snow and a cozy log cabin might appeal to you, my little festive bunny. I was about to nod, it did sound lovely except for the skiing, but something held me back. I knew of old that things weren't necessarily as they first appeared with Patrick and decided to get a little more information before getting too excited. This cozy log cabin, is it just you and I? Well, yeah. Of course. I heard the hesitation before he answered and looked at him questioningly. Well, is it or isn't it? He squirmed. The cabin will be just you and me, but I kinda agreed to go along with the family. My dad and stepmom will be there along with Sebastian and Andre, but we can sneak away to be alone. My heart sank. I still haven't forgotten last Christmas. Your brother got drunk and broke his collarbone, Andre had hysterics, and your father moved into our cabin after arguing with your stepmom. I think I'll pass. He shrugged, a big grin on his face making him look like a schoolboy. What can I say? I have an unusual family. They adore you, Bella, and Christmas is family time. What do you say? When he looked at me like that, with his pleading puppy dog eyes, I couldn't refuse him. I sighed heavily. Let me think about it. Okay. He smiled, knowing he'd won. When I said that, he knew that if he continued working on me that I would eventually give in. Fighting the whole family was just too exhausting. Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you the latest from the office. Stella had an accident this weekend. We had to get an emergency replacement in. Stella had been with the business for many years and was the glue that held it together. She knew more than anyone about the clients and the business, and I knew both Patrick and his father relied heavily on her. Oh no. Poor Stella. What happened? She slipped down the stairs at her apartment and broke her leg, cracked some ribs and gave herself a nasty bang on the head. She's going to be out of commission for a while. Luckily the girl the agency sent us is a really fast learner, thank God. Typical Patrick, worry about business, not people. I should visit Stella, I like her. Yes, that would be nice. I sent a bouquet and the company insurance is picking up her medical bills. I admit I was panicking until this new girl arrived. She seems businesslike and efficient and has a smile that works magic. I think Marty has a soft spot for her, but she's keeping him at arm's length with consummate ease. Marty was the office manager. A lovely guy, but around women he was like a shark scenting blood in the water. The poor guy was short, bald, and very stout, not to mention he was going on 60. In his own mind, however, he was a cross between Casanova and James Bond, and he could never understand why women didn't swoon at his feet. If she can cope with Marty, she must be good. Over the next few days, I heard a lot about this paragon and I began to wonder if Patrick was attracted to her. I heard about her work and the extra hours she was putting in to make sure things moved as smoothly as always, but I still didn't know her name or what she looked like. When I suggested Patrick invited her out to dinner with us, she can bring her husband or boyfriend along, he didn't seem eager but eventually agreed to ask. I was curious to meet her, but she excused herself. It appeared she had an aged father she looked after when not working and she didn't want to leave him alone. God, the woman sounded like Mother Teresa. I was beginning to dislike her already, which was so unfair as I hadn't even met her, but I couldn't help it. There had to be something about her that wasn't perfect, surely. For the next few days, I felt on edge and even snapped at Patrick a few times, then felt terrible. It was like watching a puppy you had just smacked for peeing in the house, bewildered and sad. It turned out that I'd picked up a virus and took to my bed. Even feeling awful as I did, the peace and quiet was a welcome relief from my usual hectic schedule. At Thanksgiving, I did my best to be bright and cheerful, although I had dreaded it. Another social event was the last thing I needed. The gallery had been very busy and the virus had wiped me out for a week. I had tried to get out of going to the party, but Patrick said it would do me good to get out and enjoy myself, and I didn't have the strength to argue with him. Besides, I was getting heartily sick of the four walls of my apartment. At the venue, I found myself looking around for the mysterious barking valet, hoping he would be working again, but most of the staff were female and none of the men looked anything like him. It was a glitzy event without being overpowering, and again I had to give the company 10 out of 10. The meal was out of this world while still homely, and I found myself eating for the whole room. Patrick found it highly amusing, but my excuse was that I'd starved for the week I was sick. They offered a separate room with a massive screen for the guys who wanted to watch the football, while others with money to burn could gamble on roulette or poker. I wasn't a fan of gambling, so I found a quiet corner and sat down, closing my eyes and trying to decide what to do about Christmas. Patrick had made several comments about romance and festive weddings, and I feared he was going to pop the question over the holidays. I was very fond of him, I knew he loved me and would do everything he could to make me happy, but I felt unsettled. It was as if there was something in the air that could ruin everything, although I couldn't even explain this better to myself. Did I love him? I think I did, I just wasn't sure that I was in love with him. The other thing that terrified me was the thought of all the social events I wouldn't be able to get out of. The family were very active and close-knit, which meant they spent most of the time together. Could I cope with that? I wasn't exactly a fan of his father, who tended to think himself a little above the rest of humanity, or his stepmom, whose overt sexuality made me cringe. Patrick eventually tracked me down and sat beside me, offering me a flute of champagne, which I took without noticing. Penny for them. I turned to him and smiled. They aren't worth it. It seems strange not seeing Stella here. She loves these social gatherings. P.S. I arranged with Esme to have a dinner delivered to her along with a bottle of champagne and a bouquet. That was nice. By the way, is your new secretary here? He shook his head. Nope. She spends Thanksgiving with her father, and when I told her to bring him along, she explained that he was too sick. I'm beginning to think we should keep her on even when Stella gets back. She is so efficient. I could tell he was feeling uncomfortable and was about to change the subject when I felt a hand on my shoulder and looked up to see Marty beaming down at me, his eyes fixed on my cleavage. Bella, you look particularly gorgeous today. If you ever get bored with Patrick, you could make an old man very happy. Looks are deceptive, you know. I'm really only 30 and my engine runs as smoothly as it did when I was 18. I was past becoming irate with his suggestive remarks and merely smiled back. I'll bear that in mind. Don't you have a date with you? He usually had some young escort on his arm, but he shook his head. I offered to escort Victoria, but it seems she couldn't find anyone to sit with her father. Victoria? Too many familiar names were cropping up these days. I shook myself mentally and then it fell into place. Oh, the new secretary. What's she like? Patrick is being very secretive about her. I guess that's because she is sweet on him and he doesn't want you getting jealous. Really? I turned to Patrick, who was glaring angrily at Marty, which made me wonder if there was some truth in his words. That's ridiculous, Marty. Stop stirring things. I leaped in before Patrick could silence him. Come on, Marty, what's she like? I should at least know my rival. Patrick threw up his arms in disgust, told me he was going to get fresh drinks and stalked off. Marty slipped into his spot beside me and laughed. It's so easy to wind Patrick up, poor lad. He should know me by now. Come on, spill the beans. What is this Wonder Woman Victoria like? Marty's eyes became dreamy. Bella, I cannot tell a lie. That girl is sex on two legs. She's got a figure like a model, long hair and legs that go all the way up. Okay, I get the picture. What's she like as a person? Well, she's got a soft voice, very sexy, but he'd seen my glare. That's not what you wanted to hear, is it? She's very efficient. She picked up the job on the first day. She knows how to treat a client on the phone. The mail gets done immediately along with the filing. She could work on Wall Street. Where does she live? An apartment in the city, although she spends nearly all her time at her father's. So he lives in the city too? He frowned. I guess so. I'm not sure. I never asked her. You don't need to worry about Patrick, he's crazy about you. She does like him though. Wandering off to chat up one of the young servers, Marty left me to my thoughts. So, this Victoria had her eye on Patrick. That was probably why he didn't talk about her. He was embarrassed and didn't want me to become jealous when there was no reason to be. Deciding to tease Patrick a little, I hunted him down, and after a few final words to the client he had been talking to, I led him out onto the balcony. He threw a baleful glare over his shoulder at Marty as we passed. Did you get what you wanted? You do know he was winding you up, don't you? You mean she isn't bright, gorgeous, and efficient? He pulled a face. Well, yeah, she is. And she's got her eye on you. See? I knew he would stir things up. That's why I haven't told you about her. So, she is? No, not really. She's just friendly, and my dad thinks she's a real asset to the business. I think he wants to keep her on. Stella is getting close to retirement and Victoria could take over without too much hassle. Isn't that a bit cold? Poor Stella's only 50 and once her leg mends she'll be back. To be honest, I think Victoria projects a better image. You know, the bright young thing at a successful broker's office. I stared at him. It was the kind of thing his father might say, not him. He sensed I wasn't happy with the topic and changed it hurriedly. I expected to find you with another mystery companion when you disappeared. I didn't disappear, you got talking about business and I found somewhere to sit down. I'm afraid you're going to have to get used to that, sweetheart. It's all a part of the glad handing we have to do. You'll be the hostess in years to come. Me? Well, of course, don't worry though, Magda will give you some pointers. My stepmother is very good at it. Yeah, I'd seen her in action. It could be embarrassing at times, although it appeared that I was the only one to disapprove. Or maybe I was the only one who noticed. I heard a booming voice behind me and turned to see Patrick's dad standing there. Bella, it's been too long since we saw you. Dad said you'd been ill. Glad to see you're fine again now. I hear we're going to have your company for Christmas. It's great to have all the family together. I love the festive season, good food, good wine, plenty of company. It doesn't get any better than that. Could be a special year for you, but I'm not supposed to say too much. He winked at me as Patrick jumped in with some business talk and I went outside for some air. A special year? Had Patrick told his father that he was going to propose to me? It certainly sounded like it, and it seemed that my acceptance had been taken for granted. For some reason that made me angry. I felt I was being manipulated, just like poor Stella. Deciding I needed some space, I grabbed my coat and asked Marty to tell Patrick I wasn't feeling too well and had grabbed a cab. Don't be silly, Bella. I know he's busy, but I'm sure he won't mind being interrupted. Especially under the circumstances. It's not what I said, is it? You do know I was only joshing you. I know that, Marty. No, really. I'm fine. Then I'll drive you home. Marty, you were drunk. He considered this and then nodded. Ah, right. Well. A voice from behind us spoke up. If the lady needs a ride home, I'd be more than happy to take her. I spun around to see one of the servers standing there. It's all part of our service. I protested, but Marty insisted, and I found myself sitting in a car with one of the female servers who drove towards my address. Deciding I didn't want to sit in silence, I tried to make conversation. Have you been with the company long? No. I used to work for another corporate events business, then I saw the advert for this one. It's better pay and the boss is very nice. My other employer wouldn't have offered to drive you home. Mississippi Plaid left instructions that the guests were to be looked after until the event finished, including making sure no one was stranded or inconvenienced. She sounds nice. She is. What's she like? Well, she's young for someone with her own business, but she's really on the ball. I laughed, thinking not every woman who owns her own business is a wrinkled old hag. She dropped me off and waited until I was inside before leaving. I knew Patrick would be angry with me, but I needed some time to myself. I made some hot milk and took it and a book to bed, turning off the ringtone on my phone. I would talk to him tomorrow, but for tonight I was going to relax and have some me time. I felt a little as I had when Edward had disapproved of my actions, but I still did it anyhow. Go for it, Bella. I couldn't concentrate on my book, much as I tried. I kept hearing Bruce's words. Christmas is family time. I wasn't a part of his family yet, and the more I thought about it, the more I shrank away from joining the dysfunctional crowd that composed Patrick's family. I guess I was just a loner. I never felt as if I fitted in. Hell, I never felt I fit in my own family, which, to be honest, was probably as dysfunctional as Patrick's. It appeared I would soon be faced with a choice. Marry Patrick, who loved me and would give me a good life, or be alone again. I just wished Patrick would discuss it with me instead of just dropping hints like I was a child. My phone vibrated on the bedside cabinet and I picked it up. It was Patrick, and I knew if I answered he would push me into inviting him over. I groaned and put my book down, then turned off the light and pulled the covers over my head. Hiding from the world seemed like a really good idea right now. A few minutes later there was a banging on my door. Obviously ignoring my phone hadn't worked as a hint that I wanted to be alone. With a groan, I grabbed my robe and went to answer the door. Jasper. I might not be able to attend the Thanksgiving party, but that didn't mean I was going to leave Bella unprotected. Instead, I watched from a distance. I was confused when I saw her leaving with one of the servers, but then Esme texted me to say Bella had wanted to leave and she had made arrangements for her to be escorted under such circumstances. I followed the car back to Bella's place and checked it was safe while she thanked her driver and waited for the elevator. Once she was settled inside, I retreated to my usual spot and settled down for the night to guard her. An hour later the boyfriend's car pulled up outside, and when he alighted I saw his shoulders were stiff while he radiated anger and disapproval. I hoped Bella would ignore his buzzing, but after a few minutes the door opened and he stalked inside. This could be interesting. Had they argued? Is that why Bella had left so unexpectedly? I considered moving further away. I didn't want to snoop on the two of them, but in the end, I stayed put, deciding there was little chance of romance going by the emotions emanating from him. I heard him enter the apartment. What the hell is going on, Bella? You know I had to learn of your whereabouts from Marty. I must have appeared a fool searching the place for you only to be informed you had gone home. Do you have any idea how embarrassing that was? And in front of important clients. I even called. Why didn't you answer? Are you trying to send me crazy? Hello, Patrick. Why don't you sit down and stop shouting? I grinned. Well done, Bella. The guy is acting like a jerk. I am not shouting. I'm just worried and angry. What made you think it was acceptable to leave me in the lurch? I would never have done that to you. Alright. Emotional blackmail. Good move, asshole. Okay, I owe you an apology, but I just needed to get out of there. I didn't realize that Marty would take his time telling you. I didn't ask you to take me home because I knew how important the party was to you. I don't feel so good, Patrick, and I'd like to go to bed. I gritted my teeth. Don't let him off so easily, Bella. He acted like a real idiot. There was a short silence and then I heard him kiss her and shuddered. I'm sorry you aren't well, my love, and I'm sorry I acted like I did, but I was worried about you. We're going to spend the rest of our lives together, so you have to learn to lean on me. I'll look after you. I'll always look after you. Do you want me to stay? I felt my knuckles pop as I waited for her reply. If you don't mind, I think I'd like to be alone. I have a bad headache and I've just taken some Tylenol with hot milk. He wasn't happy, but what could he do? He kissed her again and then left. I could tell he was still a little angry and couldn't help grinning. That'll teach you, asshole. I expected Bella to retire for the night, but she continued sitting on the couch where he had left her and decided to get a little closer. If she was actually in pain, then I could help. Bella sighed heavily and began to talk to herself. We are going to spend the rest of our lives together. You haven't even asked me yet. I'm beginning to think you aren't as different from Ed. You aren't that different if you just assume things. Why can't I find someone who likes the real me? Why do I always end up with someone who wants to control my life? She was feeling pretty down, so I sent a wave of weariness. Things would look better in the morning or not. I thought she was right. This Patrick wasn't as controlling as my sometime brother, but he was walking on eggshells with Bella and he didn't even notice. You can love her without controlling her, and if you don't back off, well, you're going to lose her. Once I was sure Bella was asleep, I settled down again and considered the past few weeks. Esm's situation still concerned me, although she didn't appear too bothered. She was pretty busy. Inquiries had resulted in her being commissioned for several corporate events and she seemed to be enjoying herself. I expected any day to hear that she was going back home to Carlisle, but at the same time I was grateful for her continued presence. Charlotte and Peter had offered to return and I'd said I would find out how long Esm intended to stay. They didn't get on with Esm, or at least Peter didn't, so I thought it better to keep them apart. I think Peter was disgruntled that I was happy to be working with Esm, but Charlotte soon laid down the law and he cooled down. I had been very grateful for all their help. I was sure I would not have been able to keep Bella safe without them, but Peter could be wearing after a time. I knew he was confused about why I was bothering about Bella. He'd asked often enough. I mean, it's not as if she's anything special. She was Edward's girlfriend, not yours. I just don't get it. And I got fed up with trying to explain that I felt at least partially responsible. With Esm, I didn't need to explain my motives. Getting back to Bella's situation, it bothered me that she was involved with a man like this Dick, even though it was none of my business. Sure, he appeared to be a caring guy who concerned himself with her feelings, but there was another side to him. He was a successful businessman and he hadn't got there without a streak of ruthlessness. She didn't appear to notice how he concerned himself with his needs more than hers, and that included abandoning her at social events in order to grease palms. Besides, there was no spark between them. Bella needed to be challenged. She was so much more than the girl I saw now. I'd seen the other side of her when she argued with Edward about her friendship with the Twilight boy, and when she forced him to back off when he wanted to wrap her in cotton wool. I liked that spirit, and it bothered me that there was no sign of it here. I had searched the boyfriend's condo when I first arrived and found nothing to concern me. Even though I doubted he was connected with vampires, it paid to be thorough. He was well off with a place in the city and a family compound in the suburbs, which was mainly the preserve of his father and stepmother. The business looked good. He had no debts and no friends that gave me any concern. He was, in fact, a clean-cut American boy, but when I told Esm this, she had just laughed. You should listen to yourself, Jasper. What you meant to say was that he's a nice enough guy, but he's not right for Bella. I stoutly denied her words, but she was right. I didn't think he was the right one for her. Why? I couldn't say. Sensing I didn't want to discuss this topic any further, she had changed the subject. I've heard from Carlisle. Really? What did he say? I hope he was full of apologies. She had laughed. I think I shocked him. It's what he needed. Carlisle tends to take people for granted, and I guess I got fed up with it. I'll feel better when Edward and that harridan he's tied up with leaves. You know, Jasper, I don't usually judge people, but the girl, there's something about her that I just don't like. I tried so hard for his sake, but I just can't warm to her. I think she's trouble. This was condemnation indeed. Esme was the sweetest, calmest person I had ever met. She found the good in everyone. I should meet her if she's as bad as that. She had thumped me playfully on the shoulder. You stay away, young man. I know you, and Edward doesn't need anyone winding him up. Besides, you know Carlisle will only take his side, and I don't want any more arguments. I just want the family to get together again like we used to be. She hesitated, then added, well, maybe minus Edward. I think that's wishful thinking, Esme. Rose and Emmett will come around, maybe Alice too. By the way, has she introduced you to her mate yet? No, but she's very happy. I'd like to see you happy too, Jasper. You know you don't smile anymore. You're regressing to that solemn young man I remember meeting. I smiled. Not around you, Esme. No one could be solemn around you. I have good news, by the way. Peter and Charlotte will be free again in a few weeks, so you can leave if you want. I wanted to say thank you. I'm very grateful for all your help. Esme had put an arm around me and pulled me into a motherly hug. I think I'll stick around a while longer. Who knows what might happen? I eyed her suspiciously. She sounded amused, and I wondered just what she had in mind. The following day Bella was up bright and early and focusing on her. I almost missed the fact that I wasn't the only one watching her. A young female was in a car across the street from Bella's apartment and followed her to the gallery before taking off. My first inclination was to follow her, but that meant leaving Bella unguarded, and I had no idea if the watcher had friends around. At least the waiting was over. I had finally made contact with Bella's final would-be assassin. It had been frustrating when Laurent couldn't tell us the identity of Victoria's other friends. Bella had an open gallery this evening, so I called on Esme to help me out. She would station herself in the alley across the street from the gallery while I followed Bella, who had a worrying habit of walking the streets alone even in the evening. I had started to think we'd neutralized all the threats despite the information I had gotten from Victoria before she died. There had been such a long break between the last attempt, Laurent, and this one. I was just glad Victoria's group of friends had been a small one, or we could be looking at decades before Bella was safe. The day had proved to be a busy one for Bella, getting everything ready for the evening. She had even cut a call from the boyfriend short, which I found intensely satisfying. See, asshole, you aren't the only important thing in Bella's life, even if you like to think otherwise. There was no further sight of Bella's watcher, and I presumed that she would make her move under cover of darkness. On high alert for any sense of danger, I waited for Bella to make her appearance, and sure enough, she appeared in the doorway and stood for a moment checking her pockets. Had she forgotten something? Then she pulled out her cell phone and began talking to the caller as she strolled slowly towards the gallery. It was him again, checking up on her. He had wanted to be at the show, but work had taken him out of town for a few days, so he was catching up to wish her well. She was fine. She didn't need his good wishes or him at her side. The sound of his voice irritated me, and I was glad when Bella ended the call and turned the corner, speeding up as she approached her destination. A movement in the alleyway turned out to be Esme, who was gesturing towards the darkened doorway a couple of buildings down. Bella's attacker had chosen that spot instead of the alley from which to launch her attack. As Bella fumbled with her keys in the doorway, I made my move and reached her attacker as she made her move. Esme was unable to help. Any movement by her could alert Bella to trouble. Grabbing her by the throat, I spun her around and saw the shock of recognition in her eyes. She knew who I was. Victoria had told her friend about the Cullens, and she knew all of us. As I whisked her back out of sight into the darkness of the doorway, she began to struggle and kick taken that clattered loudly in the quiet street. Bella spun around, her phone already in her hand, to call for help if needed, and I was sure she saw something, although we were too far away for her to make out any details. Unfortunately, oncoming headlights illuminated the street just as I pulled back out of sight. I heard the gallery door open and then close, the keys turning as Bella locked herself safely inside until she knew what was going on. In the meantime, I spirited my captive away knowing that Esme would watch over Bella until I returned. If, as I suspected, this was Victoria's friend, then my task was complete. Bella was safe from vengeful vampires. Safe to live her life here in Phoenix with her boyfriend, if that was what she wanted. It was her life, her choices. In my opinion, it would be the wrong one, but it was none of my business. I wasn't very good at this surveillance stuff. I hadn't even noticed the female waiting patiently in the doorway until it had been almost too late. She had picked her spot well. The breeze had changed direction and as a result, her scent had been blown away from me. I had been afraid to move for fear of giving away my position as I expected her quarry to arrive in the street at any moment. Luckily Jasper saw my signal and had the situation under control in a second. This should be the last threat to Bella's life, and if so, then I would be free to return to Carlisle or to join Rose and Emmett. They had begged me to visit once they understood the situation, but I wasn't going to leave Jasper until he finally understood his destiny. For an intelligent empath, he could be so blind where his own feelings were concerned, and I hated to think he was going to let Bella slip through his fingers. What I didn't yet know was how I was going to arrange for the two of them to meet without the boyfriend being in the picture. Jasper was right, Patrick was not the man for her. Bella deserved someone who would force her to question everything she thought she knew about herself. Someone who would offer her his soul and willingly give up his life to keep her safe. In short, he deserved true love. And now I was beginning to sound like a Hallmark romance. I watched as Bella cautiously opened the blinds without turning on the lights in the gallery. She had noticed something was wrong and was being careful, although I was sure she hadn't seen anything except perhaps some movement. If so, then she probably thought it had been a courting couple, or more probably a mugging in progress. Unfortunately, Bella was very sensitive. Even I could tell that something had put her on her guard. I think we both knew that Patrick was going to propose, and bless her, she didn't know what to do about it. I had spent some time talking to Patrick's father and had then met with him and his wife Magda. They were typical of the wealthy set who had no idea of real life. Bruce had never been forced to work hard for money. He had been left a fortune by his parents, who owned several nightclubs, a casino, and the stockbrokers where Patrick now worked. Magda had probably never done a day's work in her life. Her idea of a hard day was an hour at the beautician's, followed by a little shopping therapy and a long and expensive lunch with her friends. I wondered if Bella understood what would be expected of her if she married into the family. She would most certainly be expected to give up the gallery or get a manager in to run the business. Bruce was very keen for Patrick to marry and give him a grandson. His younger son, Sebastian, was settled with his partner Andre, and neither of them appeared to be interested in adopting a child. Bella was his best chance of a grandson to keep the business in the family. I couldn't see Bella happy in that situation. I was sure she would make a good mother, but the King family didn't look after their children, they had nannies for that. Personally, I couldn't imagine anything more miserable than giving birth and then handing that precious child over to a stranger to raise, and I doubted Bella would feel any differently. Her life would be miserable if she accepted Patrick's proposal, and it was up to me to make sure she understood that she had a choice. Bella. Once safely inside the gallery, I peered out through the window, but there was nothing to see. The street was empty except for a couple walking hand in hand at the far end. In my office, I sat down staring at my trembling hands. I was sure I had just escaped something, perhaps a mugging, but that wasn't what scared me the most. Although I couldn't make out much, the figures at the entrance of the alley were only illuminated for a second in the headlights. I was sure I had seen, well, not entirely sure, a face I recognized. Whoa there, Bella. Stop being so fanciful. How could you possibly have recognized anyone in that single glimpse? It wasn't so much a face as a profile, really just a jawline, but I could have sworn it was the parking valet from the Halloween party. Now I knew I was being an idiot. Why the hell would he be following me? Besides, he wasn't alone, there had been another figure with him. The more I thought about it, the less sure I became. I was wrong. They were merely a couple slinking into the dark alley for a few minutes alone. What I couldn't explain so readily was the feeling of imminent danger I had felt at the time. I must be getting jumpy in my old age. First, I had assumed some woman was Esme Cullen just because they shared a first name, then I jumped when I discovered Patrick's new secretary was called Victoria. As if the Victoria I had known would fit in at an office. Now I imagined I was being menaced by one of Esme Platt's employees. I needed a holiday. For all my bravado, I was still glad when the other staff appeared to open the gallery for the evening, and I was soon absorbed by business. This strange happening invaded to the back of my mind, and I was pleased to be able to report to Patrick later that I had sold a painting and a porcelain vase. Who needed a slick events company to organize an evening's entertainment? I had merely played some soft music in the background and supplied canapes and a selection of wines and soft drinks. The fact that Christmas was rapidly approaching may be responsible for my sales. I always did well this time of year. My next problem was what to buy Patrick for Christmas. I was still uneasy about the holiday. His family weren't really my kind of people. They did everything at full speed. Not a moment was wasted just sitting around and enjoying the season. There was also the probability that one or the other of his family would argue with someone. It had happened both times I had spent Christmas with them and again on vacations. Patrick didn't understand it when I had asked if we could go away together. Just the two of us. It wasn't the way he had been brought up and was a totally alien concept. I just didn't need the drama a vacation with his family always provided. The feeling of unease returned as we locked up, and I was grateful for Tina's offer to walk me home. I hated feeling like this, vulnerable, but I couldn't shake it. Even when safe in my apartment behind locked doors, I continued to feel edgy. I must be tired, or it could be the unease of what I felt was coming at Christmas. The next morning, the sound of the phone ringing woke me up, and I grabbed it clumsily, almost dropping the receiver. Glancing at the clock, I saw that I had overslept. It was almost 10. I didn't recognize the voice on the phone, just registered that it was female. Is that Bella? Who is this? I'm sorry. I'm ringing on behalf of Patrick. He asked me to tell you that he's going to be away an extra day or so. This contract is proving to be more work than he anticipated. I was puzzled. Why hadn't he called me himself? And you were? Again, apologies. I feel like we already know each other. I've heard so much about you. I'm Patrick's personal secretary. So, this was the woman giving Marty palpitations. Oh, yes. Patrick mentioned you. Stella's temporary replacement. Well, thank you. I hadn't liked the way she described herself as Patrick's personal secretary, emphasis on the personal, or her familiarity, which is why I had emphasized temporary. Had things gotten so bad that I was jealous of a voice on the phone? Did you want me to relay a message to him? No, I have his number, thank you. I don't think that will help. Patrick lost his cell phone and I don't have his new number yet. Well, perhaps you can give me his hotel number. Sorry. He's staying with a client and I can't disclose the address or number, but I can take a message if you like. I dislike the bitch even more now. It's okay, I'm sure I'll hear from him later. Well, if you're sure. It was lovely to finally talk to you, Bella. Remember, if you need anything, I'm only too happy to help. She gave me her number, which was not the office, and then rang off. I still couldn't work out why Patrick hadn't called me himself. He knew my number and that of the gallery. Besides, he had called last night and hadn't mentioned any of this. I checked my phone only to find the number Patrick had used was withheld. Great. I tried Patrick's cell phone anyway and was surprised that it was answered, but then I recognized Marty's voice. Bella? Hi, Marty. Why are you answering Patrick's phone? You aren't with him, are you? No. Somehow it got left behind. I wouldn't have answered, but I saw it was you. Is everything okay? Yes, I think so. I just had a call from Victoria. Who? Victoria, the new secretary. Oh, right. He sounded cagey. I explained what she had said and he hesitated before speaking. I see. I don't get why he didn't call you, he must have been there. You mean with her? Victoria went on this business trip? Well, Mr. Robsard called before Patrick left and told him there were going to be some social events. He wanted Patrick to bring you, but Pat knew you had your gallery evening, so he found a substitute. How very sweet of her. Marty couldn't have missed the sarcasm in my voice, but he didn't comment on it. Can you give me a contact number for him? Sure, but I think they're on the yacht and I don't have any way of contacting him there. If he calls in, I'll tell him you were trying to get in contact. In the meantime, can I help? No. It's okay, and don't bother telling him. I'll wait until he calls me. A worm of suspicion settled in my brain. Why hadn't Patrick told me he was taking his secretary? More to the point, why hadn't he asked me to accompany him? I could have left Tony to run the gallery, or at least I would have had the chance to refuse the offer for myself. I hated it when he made assumptions. Would you have gone though? He knows how much you hate those business trips and all the social glad-handing. Maybe he was just thinking of you. Was he? Or did he see it as a good excuse for a week away with the flash-eager young secretary? I was like a bear with a sore head all day, and before I forced my staff out of the gallery I gave up and left them to it. Great, now I had nothing to do but think about Patrick and Victoria having fun on the yacht while I sat here at home like a fool. Don't you trust him, Bella? Of course I did, but he was a man and she was by all accounts a gorgeous young woman. Why had she called me? No, why had he asked her to call me? Why hadn't he called me himself? Why hadn't he told me about her last night? The questions were driving me crazy, and I decided to take a drive out of the city and treat myself to lunch at a little restaurant Patrick and I loved. Sitting alone at one of the small tables in the shade of the trees, I knew coming here had been a mistake. Whenever I had been here, it had been with Patrick, and we had talked and laughed the hours away. The thought that Patrick might even now be with Victoria darkened my mood and took away my appetite. I picked at my food, wondering why I was suddenly so suspicious of Patrick. I think it was the call from that secretary who started it. Why hadn't she told me that she was with him? Why had he asked her to give me a message? Surely if he was seeing her too, he would have kept her a secret, or did he not care? Maybe I was wrong about my feeling that he was going to propose to me. Was that just wishful thinking? Something else nagged at me. I'd never met Victoria, but her voice sounded vaguely familiar. Almost as if it had been someone I had spoken to before and she had been trying to alter it to throw me off. He had also excused himself to work late a few nights recently, which was odd. Admittedly, he had done so in the past, but only rarely, and he'd always managed to call me during the evening, if only for a couple of minutes. His excuse that his cell phone was playing up seemed pathetic now I thought about it. His phone was like a third arm, always with him. If it was playing up, he would have bought a new one. So, why hadn't he? In fact, he hadn't talked about his new secretary since telling me about her arriving at the office to take over the injured Stella's job. Suddenly the hairs on the back of my neck began to prickle. I had that unsettling feeling that I was being watched again. Turning around as casually as I could, I checked out my surroundings. No one appeared to be interested in me, they were busy with conversation or eating, and then a voice at my side made me jump. Hello, Bella. I glanced at the woman who had joined me and my mouth fell open. So it was you? She smiled. Yes. I thought you might guess it was me when you saw my business card. I did wonder until I saw the name. My maiden name. But why? Why are you here? Are the others here too? I knew she heard the edge in my voice, but right now I didn't care. I needed to know if Edward was watching us. I should explain, you deserve some answers. May I join you? That way you can eat while I talk. I looked at my plate, but my throat had closed up with apprehension. I'm alone if that helps. Carlisle and I are taking a break. Relieved, I nodded and she sat opposite, careful to stay in the shadow of the cabana. As she began to explain what had happened, I found myself eating, although I didn't remember picking up my fork. You mean you and Carlyle argued over me? Why? You didn't care when you left me in forks. Esme had the grace to look embarrassed. I know it must have looked that way. I'm so sorry that I allowed Edward to take control. I hope you can forgive me. I looked around again. So, is Jasper here too? Watching over me? She shook her head. No. He's back at my apartment. He doesn't know that I'm here. I'm sure he would be very angry if he found out. Why? From what you've said, he was saving my life. He feels responsible. He was the one who let you slip through his fingers here in Phoenix, and it was Jasper who killed James. I'm sorry, I don't see that. I was the one who tricked him back then. Besides, shouldn't it be Edward who is riding in like my white knight? Edward is married. I heaved a sigh of relief and she smiled again. You look like a drowning woman who was just handed a life belt. It feels that way. You know that I never want to see him again, don't you? He almost ruined my life. It took me a long while to get over what he did to me. And you aren't there yet, I know. I think he's met his match with Sasha. Sasha? Yes, his wife. So, your business was just a cover story? I have to admit you did a great job. Your staff seemed to like you too. Even as I said the words, it hit me. I had a strange feeling that I'd met that valet before. Her grin widened. He was hoping you wouldn't recognize him in the disguise. It was Jasper. So, where's Alice? Esme's expression became sober. Alice left. She is living in Portland with her husband. Alice left? But I thought. My voice faded off. They had seemed like the perfect couple, so what had gone wrong? And Rose? Emmett? They're traveling, although I'm hoping they will come home soon. I miss them all. It seems your life fell apart too, because of me. She reached out and took my hand. No, Bella. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. I've learned what is important and I refuse to be taken for granted any longer. There were 3 people in my marriage and that's one too many. Finally, Carlyle has seen that too. So, I guess you'll be leaving then? Now I'm no longer in danger. Not just yet. I have another party booked. You're going to stay? Believe it or not, I'm enjoying myself, Bella. I feel good. I can be myself, and you know I love designing. Parties are very much like homes. The right ambience can make or break an event or a room. And Jasper? Your parking valet? Well, I'm not sure. Suddenly I needed to speak to him. I'd like to thank him before he leaves. I don't know. He's not one for goodbyes. Please. Will you tell him that I'd like to see him? Asm sighed. I'll see what I can do, but I think he's going to be angry that I contacted you. Why? Jasper thinks we've done enough damage in your life. He thinks you deserve to be happy, and that means a life free of our kind. You said you had one more party to arrange. Is it in town? Yes. It's a masked ball for one of your boyfriend's competitors. Could you get me an invitation? And see if Jasper will stay to help you out. I could ambush him. He's not going to throw me out of a party or leave you in the lurch. I'd like to thank him, Esm. She smiled. Leave it with me. I'll see what I can do. It was good to talk to you again, Bella. I hope you can forgive us in time. I already forgive you, Esm. That's all that matters. Jasper too, and I'll tell him so if I ever get to see him again. She got up and threw me an enigmatic look. You never can tell, Bella. Especially at Christmas. It's not Christmas yet. True, but there's still festive magic in the air. Then she was gone, leaving me to mull over all she had told me. The crazy thing was that I felt so much better for seeing her and discovering why I had been experiencing all those strange feelings of being watched. I still didn't understand the festive magic reference, but for now, I felt better. Esm. Jasper would be incensed if he discovered that I had made contact with Bella and told her what he had been doing, but it was clear to me that if I had done nothing he would be on his way and she would probably be stuck with Patrick, and it was clear that he wasn't the right one for her. Now all I had to do was to keep him here a little longer and engineer a way to get them to meet. The problem was how. When I got back to my apartment, he was lying on the couch reading a book, but I could see his bag was packed. I would have to think fast. Hi, Esm. I've given some thought to what you said about staying on to help you out. I know it's going to sound awful after you came here to help me, but I think it would be better if I left now. You've got plenty of staff and Bella's safe. I should go. You can't. He frowned. What? Why? I took a deep breath and crossed my fingers behind my back. Because I had a call from Carlisle while I was out. He said he'd been asking around and he heard there might be one friend of Victoria's still out there. He did? I thought he frowned on what I was doing. What changed his mind? I think he was trying to get back into my good books. Anyway, you can't leave if she's still in danger. Well, no, but did he say where he heard this? Or who it is? No, but he's going to keep asking. Jasper gave me a searching look. He must feel my anxiety, and I babbled on. I'm sorry. I'm a little overwrought. I thought it was all over and I began to relax. I'd hate to think anything happened to Bella after all you've done, and I hate to leave a job half done. She was like a daughter to me. Sure. Well, I guess you'll have a guest for a little longer. I should probably find Bella before something happens. She was fine when I saw her. You saw her? Yes, I was driving back from a client meeting and saw her at a restaurant. I think she's pretty safe during the day. I guess so, but I don't like to take chances. Was she alone? As a matter of fact, she was. Didn't we hear that her boyfriend was going to be away for a few days? He nodded, and I was amused to see the way his nose wrinkled when I mentioned Patrick. If only he would examine his own feelings instead of other people's for a change, but then men could be so blind when it came to love. There's no point in you trying to find her now, she would be long gone from the restaurant. I guess not. I'll check the gallery, and if she's not there I'll wait at her apartment. Give me a call if you need any help. I will, Esm, but you're busy enough as it is. I'll catch up with you later. I heaved a sigh of relief when he left. Playing matchmaker for those two wasn't easy. I just hoped they would realize what they meant to each other sooner rather than later. I wasn't sure my nerves could stand another prolonged session like this, and I hated fibbing to Jasper. I wasn't good at telling lies, but luckily Carlisle wouldn't be likely to talk to Jasper, so my subterfuge was unlikely to be discovered. Bella. For some reason, I felt my mood lighten considerably as I made my way back home. Seeing Esme again had been a shock, but not as much as learning that I had a guardian angel who had been watching over me for the past few years. How ironic that it was Jasper and not Edward who had taken on my protection. I was relieved to hear that Edward was married, because it freed me from my fear that he might return one day, even though I knew in my heart that was ridiculous. I checked my phone for missed calls or messages from Patrick, but there was nothing. That fact would have annoyed me a couple of hours ago, but now I didn't care. Sure, I was mad at him and the situation sounded very suspicious, but I would worry about it when I next heard from him. I tried not to look around when I got home, but I knew Jasper wasn't far away. It occurred to me that he had always made me feel safe even when he did nothing. His was a quiet, unassuming presence that had made me feel good, and I smiled to myself as I rode the elevator up to my apartment. I hoped that Esm was able to get me that invitation. I was desperate to thank him in person for all he had done, and I knew if he just took off that I would never be able to hunt him down on my own. Sitting down with a mug of coffee, I thought about all I had learned from Esm. I felt sorry for her. She had been devoted to her family and loved the others as if they had been her own flesh and blood. It was so sad that they had now scattered. I just hoped they would come back, and that Carlisle humbled himself with a groveling apology to his wife. She certainly deserved better from him. Sasha, Edward's wife. I admit I was curious about her. I wondered where he had met her and what she looked like. I was not, however, envious or jealous. I'd had enough of Edward when we had been dating, and I could finally admit that he was not right for me. I was a different person when he and I met, and I didn't like the person I had become under his influence. Talking of which, did I like the Bella I was becoming under Patrick's influence? He had always been kind and thoughtful, but recently his attitude had changed. As long as things were going his way, he was happy and charming, but he didn't like it when I tried to go my own way. I was beginning to think that being married to him would entail a certain amount of compromise on my part. He was assuming I would fit in with the way things were done in the family, even if they made me feel uncomfortable. The question was, did love always mean compromising? I was beginning to think maybe it did. Renee called with the dates she and Phil were going to be in Boston, and I promised to ask Patrick. We might even be celebrating, honey. Celebrating what? Oh, I don't know. Romantic things happen at Christmas, Bella. I groaned. It'll be the new year, Mom. I'm not even sure we can make it. Do you and Patrick have plans? I know you were going to spend Christmas with his family in the mountains, but I thought he said you'd be free for the new year. You've already spoken to Patrick? When? Oh, I just wanted to check if everything was okay between you two. Whenever I ask you, all I get are vague mumblings. I need plenty of time to organize things if there is going to be wedding bells. It will be quite the society event. I found it difficult to continue the conversation. I was so angry. Even my mother was going behind my back to organize me. Wait till I spoke to Patrick. She sensed my mood and cut the call short, although I knew she would forget it in minutes. Renee was a butterfly. She only thought about the things that were of immediate interest. Once she turned to Phil, my mood would float free of her mind to join all the others in some kind of netherworld. The cold put me in a bad mood for the evening, so I had a long soak in the tub and then took a book and a hot chocolate to bed and lost myself in the story. By the time I put it down, I was relaxed again and ready for sleep. As I turned the light out, I wondered where Jasper was and what he was doing. It was better than wondering if Patrick was shacked up on some yacht with the delectable Victoria. Sunday was the one day of the week that I usually relaxed, staying in bed a little longer, and the phone woke me up. This was becoming a bad habit. I'd had a really bad night tossing and turning, and I was tired and cranky. Bella? Sorry, I didn't realize the time. Did I wake you? Are you missing me? Patrick? At last. I thought you'd fallen off the edge of the world. Sorry, Bella. I know you must be mad at me. It's been a tough few days. But guess what? I got the account and another one too. Your boy is a genius. Good for you. Ouch, you were grumpy this morning. I thought you'd be pleased for me. We have something to celebrate when I get back. I know, we'll go to the Capitol Grill. And when is that likely to be? Can you tell me, or will you have to get Victoria to call me again? There was a discernible chill in his voice when he replied. What is that supposed to mean? Are you pissed because I asked my secretary to call you? I think that's a little petty. You know, sometimes I get tied up and I can't keep checking in with you. Well, I didn't enjoy discovering that you took Victoria with you on your little business trip. What? Victoria? Who told you that? Marty, when he answered your cell phone. The one that she told me you'd lost. Oh, right. Well, I did misplace it and I've been too busy to shop for a new one. Anyhow, I did not take Victoria with me. She left. Her dad was rushed into the ER. So who was it who called me? He hesitated. That would be Chelsea. I was stuck and she happened to call in at the office. She offered to help me out of a tight spot. Besides, we both know how you hate that kind of thing. It's something you are going to need to work on. I'm so glad you found someone to step in for me. I'm sure she enjoyed it. As a matter of fact, she did. You could get a few pointers from her. Really? Do you think so? Well, just call me the next time you have a few minutes spare. Enjoy the rest of your day. I cut the connection and then felt a little foolish. Patrick had called me full of good news and I had almost snapped his head off. I made myself appear a jealous teenager instead of a mature woman. I toyed with the idea of calling him back with an apology and then realized that I couldn't. I still didn't have a contact number for him. Chelsea? What was she doing at the office in the first place? Gone to make cow eyes at Patrick? If he thought I would take pointers from that child, he was even more stupid than I thought. I bet she had spent the last few days hanging off his arm. I felt sorry for her boyfriend. What had he thought of his girlfriend going away with her ex for a few days? Groaning in frustration, I pulled the covers back over my head and sulked for the next half hour. If I kept this up, Patrick would have ruined my day off, and I was determined he wasn't going to do that, so I got up, showered, and went out for a late breakfast. After that, I decided it would be a good idea to do some Christmas shopping. If I was going to see Renee and Phil, I'd better have something for them, other than the grandchild that Renee was so anxious to get her hands on. I had no idea what to buy Patrick, and I wasn't in the mood to shop for him anyhow, so that would have to wait. I toyed with the idea of buying something for Esmond Jasper. I did owe them my life after all, but try as I did, I couldn't see anything that struck me as suitable. Until that is, I happened by an antique shop that had just opened and decided to browse. I loved immersing myself in the belongings of past generations. Patrick called it expensive junk. He preferred the new and shiny, like the rest of the family, but these things had a past. They had been bought and cherished by someone, they had character. I was one of only 3 customers and wandered around picking up things and examining them as the minutes ticked by. Then I saw it, a pretty carved jewelry box. It called to me, and when I opened it I was enchanted to discover it was musical. A pretty ballerina spun on a mirrored surface to a soft tune. I was sure Esm would love it, and the ballerina would be a reminder of why she was here guarding me with Jasper. I hadn't thought about the horror in the ballet studio for a very long time, except for that single glimpse in my nightmare. It no longer terrified me, it was in the past and James was dead. As I turned with the box in my hand, I happened to glance at the opposite wall. Half hidden in the semi-darkness of a corner was a framed painting of a man on horseback. As I moved closer, I made out his uniform. It was a Confederate officer sitting proudly upon his steed. His face was in profile, shaded by the brim of his hat, but he reminded me of Jasper. It was something in his bearing. Edward had told me that Jasper had been a Confederate officer before becoming a vampire. It would be fanciful to imagine the painter had ever seen Jasper. He probably hadn't even painted this from life, but I fell in love with it. I lifted it down to look more closely. It would have been great in the gallery, but I decided to buy it for myself. It would look good on my wall. Pleased with myself, I held my purchases tightly as I made my way slowly back to my apartment, grabbing a coffee to go as I did so. After half an hour of careful cleaning, the painting was ready to hang. I just needed to choose a spot for it. After trying out a few places, I eventually decided to hang it on the wall at the foot of my bed. Once finished, I lay back on my bed and stared at it, wondering what the soldier was thinking. Had he been in battle? Or was he headed towards it? Did he survive, or was he wounded or even killed? So many possibilities whirled around in my head, and I closed my eyes, the soldier morphing into Jasper in my dreams. Next thing I knew, I was jerked awake by the sound of a dog barking from next door. It was dark. I had fallen asleep dreaming of riding off into the sunset with my mystery soldier. Hell, who was I kidding? It had been Jasper in the saddle of that horse. The next morning I got a message from Patrick. A huge bouquet of red roses with a card. See you soon. Don't forget we're skiing in a couple of weeks. If you need anything, please charge it to my card. Patrick Axe. P.S. Jealousy looks good on you. It's flattering. Oh, sorry, I'm afraid I won't be back in time for the parade. Never mind, we can go next year, I promise. Axe. How romantic. I hadn't even agreed to his Christmas plans yet, and as usual, he was assuming I would go along with the family. A few weeks ago this probably wouldn't have annoyed me so much as amused me, but something had changed. I was still sore about Chelsea going along to keep him company, and his flippant words about jealousy didn't help. I had half a mind to dump the flowers in the trash, but that would have been pity. Instead, I ripped up the card and gave them to Patty to put in the gallery. I wish I had a boyfriend who sent flowers. A rich boyfriend who would shower me with gifts and take me to fancy parties. I snorted. You mean you wish you had a boyfriend at all? What happened to Diego? She pulled a face. He went back to his wife and 3 kids. Laughing at my horrified expression, she explained, only joking. He was only interested in 2 things, beer and sex. Never mind. Better luck next time. I've decided to stay single, it's less complicated. Sean, who overheard this, pulled a face. Yeah, till the next loser comes along. Who are you trying to kid? Patty stuck her tongue out at this. The next handsome loser, you mean? The 2 of them wandered off, still bickering softly, and I closed my door. They were great workers but had the most complicated lives I had ever come across. Very bounce from one loser to another to the despair of her wealthy parents, and John was living with a drag queen who had custody of his 2 kids because their mother was doing time for stabbing her latest boyfriend who had stolen her last welfare check. Suddenly my own life seemed very mundane and my troubles inconsequential. I sat back and sighed. I was feeling out of sorts. I'd been looking forward to the electric light parade. Patrick had promised to take me after having to pull out last year at the last minute. To him, it wasn't important because going wouldn't earn him anything. He didn't seem to care that it was something I wanted to see. Well, I'd show him. I'd go by myself. It wouldn't be the same, but neither would be sitting at home alone watching it on TV. I had checked my mailbox hoping for an invitation to the masked ball from Esm, but there was nothing. I just hoped Jasper hadn't already left. If only I had known he was there. I could have looked for him. If I'd called his name, I was sure he wouldn't have ignored me. Luckily the gallery was busy the next couple of days, so I didn't have much time to think about Patrick, although I did wonder why it was taking him so long to get back if he had already concluded the deal as he said he had. Nagda, Patrick's stepmom, called just as I was shutting up on Friday night. Bella, I thought I'd call and see how you were. Chelsea emailed me. Patrick is very upset after your argument the other night. Argument? Now don't be coy. She said you 2 had words because he didn't tell you she'd gone along on his business trip to help him out. You really shouldn't be jealous. Patrick adores you. He just gets carried away sometimes. The family is a bit like that, single-minded. It's what makes them so successful, although it can seem a little cold from the outside. Anyway, she said Patrick had let you down for the parade. So, I wondered if you'd like to come to our place for the weekend. You can watch it with us on TV. Bruce has some friends coming over, so you'll have some new people to meet. It's got to be better than staying all alone with it being so close to Christmas. I'm afraid our chauffeur is too busy this evening, but if you call a cab, I'll pay the fare. I was furious that Abigail's little sister had been telling Magda my business. It was nothing to do with her. She was so condescending. She made it sound like I was a charity case left all alone in the cold while everyone else was out having fun. Poor little orphan Annie. Thanks, but I've already made plans for the weekend. She sounded a little shocked. You have? Oh. Patrick seemed to think you'd be alone with him away. He is only thinking of you, sweetie. I know I'd be devastated in your place. Being a member of this family takes some getting used to. Bruce sometimes goes away for weeks at a time, leaving me all alone here. All alone? That was a laugh. She had more staff than the White House. I'll be fine. So, Bella, what are you doing over the weekend? A friend is in town, so we'll be catching up. All right. Well, your friend is welcome to come too. There's plenty of room for a girlfriend of yours. She was fishing, but I wasn't going to be caught. Let her wonder, and even better still, tell Patrick I had plans. Maybe that would encourage him to come back quickly. Bella, I know I shouldn't be telling tales, but I think I know why Patrick took Chelsea with him. He wanted some advice. About what? She hesitated. Well, I'm sure you know he's crazy about you and you are aware that Chelsea is a realtor. Yes. So? Oh gosh, he's going to be furious with me, but I don't suppose it will matter much very soon. He's not back yet because he's busy looking for just the right place and an interested party. I was now totally confused. Why couldn't Magda just come out with things instead of trying to act so cryptic? The right place for what? A home. You know, for the two of you. He's been looking for a while. He wants somewhere not too far from us, and I think Chelsea is helping him. How sweet of her. I clenched my teeth. How dare he? I suppose it will be okay to tell you the rest. There was more. Patrick wasn't sure if you wanted to sell the gallery or just rent the space out, so he asked Chelsea to put out some feelers. It's so much easier if you have a buyer standing by. I was speechless. Sell the gallery? Well, of course. I mean, you're not going to have time to run it once you're married. I barely have time to keep this place up. There is so much to think about, social events to coordinate, playing the gracious hostess, and still finding time for yourself. Don't worry about that yet. I'm sure you'll cope and I can give you some advice. I was stunned, unable to speak, but she didn't even notice. She just kept on talking. I need to talk to you anyhow. I know you think there's plenty of time, but trust me, weddings take a lot of organizing. Have you given any thought to a venue or a party planner? Probably not, but don't worry, I have plenty of contacts, or you could try that new company. They seem very efficient. Unbelievable. It appeared I would have no input in my wedding, all supposing that I actually agreed to marry Patrick. And on top of that, it was assumed that I would give up the gallery. Well, someone was in for a rude awakening. Excuse me, Magda, but there is just one small detail everyone seems to be forgetting. Patrick hasn't asked me to marry him yet. I know that, but we all know it's going to happen soon, and he hates to rush things. I'm sure he will as soon as he gets back. Oh yes, that reminds me. I know a great little boutique that does the most divine ski wear, and the guy who runs it is amazing. Cute too, which helps. We could go there Saturday before the guests arrive. Thanks, but as I said, I've got company. That's okay, she can come too. Then we can have lunch out and drive back in time for you to watch the parade. The chef we hired for the weekend is great. He can do things with lobster you can only dream of. I could think of a few things I'd like to do with a lobster right now too. I'll pass, Magda, but thanks. I was almost choking with rage. How dare he try to arrange my life for me? Did he think I would just sit there and not like his stepmom? Screw you, Patrick. I'm going to see the parade anyway. I don't need your charity, your company, or your permission. I know I shouldn't have been listening in, but as Jasper was out hunting and I was watching Bella, I could hardly help it. This was just what I needed. When Jasper turned up, I was ready. Anything going on, No, it's quiet. By the way, Bella is going to watch the parade tomorrow. I thought we could join her. He frowned. Join her? Do you mean to go to the parade? You and me? Well, don't sound so scandalized. I promise to behave myself. There will be plenty of people around, and it won't be so easy to watch out for her if we're on the outside. I don't think anyone will try anything. There are too many people around. Oh, come on. The least you can do is take me to the Christmas parade. Humor me. He hesitated, then nodded. Okay, I guess we can stay out of sight of Bella among the crowds. Good. Are you sure you don't want to get home? I mean, it's almost Christmas and you love to spend time with family over the festive season. I patted his cheek. It's only Christmas when the family is all together, and right now my loved ones are scattered all over. Besides, Edward and Sasha might still be there. I'm not sure I could generate any festive spirit with the girl in the house. I'm so sorry, You don't deserve all this. Never mind, Jasper. I'm happy here for now. There will be plenty more Christmases to celebrate, and who knows? Maybe the magic of Christmas will do something special. I left him watching Bella and went back to the apartment hoping that this plan of mine wouldn't backfire. As long as Patrick didn't turn up out of the blue, we should be okay. It was silly, but I felt quite excited. I loved this time of year, and the thought I might be bringing happiness to two special people who deserved it made it even more special. With Jasper out of the way watching Bella, I decided to do a little Christmas shopping. I wasn't going to forget my family even if I wouldn't be seeing them this year. When my phone rang, I thought it was Jasper checking in, so hearing Rosalie's voice was quite a surprise. Hi, Esm. We called Carlisle and he said you were off on an adventure. What's going on? You're always home for Christmas. I'm not sure I'll make it home this year, Rose. How are you and Emmett? Still traveling around Europe? We're presently in Germany. You know how Emmett loves the season. He's been having a ball at the Christmas markets. We were hoping to come home for the festive season, but if you're not going to be there. I interrupted quickly, you could join me here. Where's here exactly? Her reaction was going to be interesting. I'm in Phoenix with Jasper. Oh. Well, that was a better response than I had expected. And I take it he's still on his mission to save Bella Swan. Yes, and I happen to believe what he's doing is right. She sighed, and what she said next floored me. We do too. Emmett and I have talked about it a lot. You know, he was all for helping out in the beginning. I was the one who couldn't see it. But you see it now, that's all that matters. We virtually ruined Bella's life, and it's only fair that we try to put things right if we can. I heard Emmett mumbling something into her ear. Emmett wants to know if there's anything we can do. I don't suppose Jasper would welcome our help. I think Jasper would be very pleased to see you, and I know I'd love it if you joined us. Are you sure? I'm positive. Can you just do me a small favor? Don't mention to him that you've spoken to Carlisle. Okay, but can I ask why? You're being very mysterious. I'll explain everything when I see you. I should know more by then. I knew she was dying to quiz me further, but Emmett wanted to say hi, and then we arranged that I would pick them up from the airport on Sunday. It was wonderful to know that I would be seeing them again soon, and if the family was coming to me, then I needed a home for Christmas. That meant some quick work finding a suitable rental. What I needed was a few hours with the infamous Chelsea. It didn't take long to track her down, and I was amused to find that she was busy with a client for the treat Patrick, but would be free to help me the next day. I have somewhere I think will more than meet your requirements, Mississippi Platte. I wish I could help you sooner, but I'm actually out of town until Sunday. Would 3 o'clock on Sunday afternoon be okay? As long as I can have possession before Christmas. Oh yes, the property I'm thinking of is currently available. It's in the best area of the city and has only just come onto the market. I'll send you the details and meet you there at 3 on Sunday. I was more than happy about that. If she was out of town until Sunday, then so was Patrick. The last thing I needed was him turning up before the parade. I just had to call Carlisle. I felt excited to think that at least some of the family would be together for the festive season. I'm pleased for you, Esm. I thought perhaps that's why they called. I hope you didn't mind my telling them you were on an adventure. I miss you. Edward and Sasha are leaving tomorrow. They are planning on spending Christmas in Milan with Sasha's friends. I was so relieved to hear that. You could join me here, Carlisle. He hesitated, and his voice was thick with emotion when he finally replied. I didn't want to ask. I know how badly I behaved. I don't know what came over me. The smallest thing seems to irritate me at present, but I would never, at least I never meant to hurt you, but I did. All I can say is that I promise it will never happen again. Are you sure you want me there? And what about Jasper? He's not my greatest fan. Jasper wants me to be happy, and he knows that you make me happy. I'm not sure I agree with him, not after the past few weeks. Carlisle, this is just a theory that we have, and it has nothing to do with the fact that I don't particularly like Sasha. I think she causes friction between people. It's not something she does purposely, but she sows discord wherever she is. I remember you telling me that Edward told you he had fallen out with his friend Martin when they met up. Perhaps whenever she gets jealous it just happens. I know she was jealous of the fact that Edward had a family. I suppose it's possible and you think that's why I pushed you away. That takes the onus off me, but it seems to let me off the hook too easily. Let's put it behind us. Christmas won't be Christmas without you, Carlisle. Do come. Thank you, my love. I won't be able to make it until Christmas Eve. I'm working at the clinic until then. Just get here as soon as you can. I love you, Carlisle. I love you too, Esm. I was sure my theory was right. I'd thought about it a lot since arriving here. His attitude was so unlike Carlisle that there had to be an outside influence responsible. We loved each other, were devoted, and I wasn't about to let Sasha ruin our lives. I almost didn't go to the parade, but I decided that if I stayed home then Patrick would have one. He didn't want me to go out alone and the parade wasn't important to him, so he couldn't understand why I cared. He had let me down before and each time he promised the next time, well, I wasn't a good little girl who would do as I was told and go stay with his mommy while he was out planning my future for me. As I made my way downtown I thought about what had happened recently. What was it with me? Did I have a sign on my back saying sucker? Did I look like I couldn't survive without some strong man to tell me what to do and keep me safe? It seemed I had been wrong about Patrick. He had changed recently, almost as if he thought he had got what he wanted and didn't need to concern himself with my needs or desires any longer. What made him think it was acceptable to plan out my life? Did he think I was going to become a Magda clone who drank and flirted too much and spent the rest of her life getting her hair and nails done? I liked my gallery and I wasn't going to give it up for anyone without a fight. Not even Patrick if I married him, and it was a big if, that was if he ever got around to asking me. Patrick was just like Edward. My every move would be choreographed for me, and if I tried to do anything that didn't fit in I would be nudged back onto the tracks. I wasn't the type to sit around and look glamorous for his business associates and simper at their stupid jokes. I was lucky I'd realized before I made a terrible mistake. I'd seen the trap just in time. He'd been working on me and on my mom and I hadn't seen it. I wondered idly if I could persuade Jasper to teach Patrick a lesson or two. The idea made me smile, but then I realized I still hadn't heard from Esm. For all I knew Jasper may have already left. My mood darkened. I had been excited at the thought I would see him and be able to thank him for his kindness. For the past few years, I had lived my life blithely, unaware that I had been watched and protected. That made me wonder, would you have done anything differently if you'd known? I guess I would have been annoyed that he thought I needed a bodyguard even though he was right. After all, I hadn't done so well in the past against vampires, now had I? Finding a good vantage point, I settled down to watch the brightly lit floats pass by. There were lots of families here, children with wide eyes, excited to see the floats and knowing that Santa would soon be visiting. I wondered idly what it would feel like to have my own little girl holding my hand and jumping up and down impatient for the parade to pass. I sipped my now cold coffee and gave myself a stiff talking to. You keep thinking like that and you'll end up exactly where Renee and Patrick want you. Married and pregnant. The thought of bringing up a child in the dysfunctional atmosphere of that family gave me the shudders. If I did have a child and it was anything like me, it would be a basket case in a week caged up in the family compound. I would have to break it to Patrick that I was putting a stop to his planning. He could find himself someone else to manipulate like a Barbie doll, not me. Perhaps he should have stayed with Chelsea, she would probably have been happy to be his trophy wife. All the same, I wished I had someone to share this evening with. Looking around, I was the only person here who didn't have a companion. And now you were feeling sorry for yourself, Bella. For God's sake, pull yourself together, woman. At that moment the floats began to appear and they were wonderful. All the colors, the music and the costumed figures on the floats. I watched in awe as the fire eaters and acrobats went by, wishing I was talented like that. Ask me to do a cartwheel and you might as well have an ambulance standing by complete with paramedics and an orthopedic surgeon. A sensation as if I was being watched flowed over me, and I scanned the crowd that surrounded me. Esme had told me I was no longer in any danger, but I felt nervous. Suddenly I felt a hand on my arm and spun around in fright to find Patrick standing there, a huge smile on his face. Surprise. He pulled me close and kissed me theatrically, much to my embarrassment, although I doubted anyone was watching us. They were way more interested in the parade floats. When I finally had a chance to take a breath, Patrick had his arm around me and was leading me away from the crowds. "What are you doing here? You told me that you wouldn't be back for the parade." "I know, but I missed you and I know you were angry with me." "Oh really? How?" "Well, I think the tenor of your voice on the phone was the first clue, and then I spoke to Magda and she told me that you'd blown her off. Unless of course I got it all wrong." "Did I? I don't see your mysterious friend here." "No, you didn't." "Then let's find somewhere to get a drink and we can talk." I would have preferred to watch the rest of the parade, but the crowds had flowed into the space we had created and he was still guiding me away from the road. Deciding it would be better to go along with him, I stopped resisting. We did need to talk. We found a table at one of the cafes and Patrick ordered a soda for himself and a strong coffee for me. We sat in silence until the drinks arrived and the server had left. "What did I do, Bella? It's clear you are angry with me and I'd like the opportunity to defend myself. Why didn't you tell me that Chelsea was going on the business trip with you?" He smiled. "That's it? Bella, I needed someone and I knew you would hate the business trip. Besides, Chelsea has worked at the office so she knows the ropes. Next time I'll take you." "How's that? Am I forgiven?" I stared at him. Did he think I would stoop to being jealous of Abigail's little sister? "No, actually it's not." He frowned. "Okay, fire away. Was there another reason you took her? And I don't mean to warm your bed." He almost choked on the gulp of soda he had just taken. "I'm sorry. I have no idea what you are talking about. You're going to have to spell it out for me, I'm a little jet-lagged." "I'll give you a clue. The gallery. My gallery." I placed great emphasis on that word. He stared at me, still frowning, then understanding flooded his face. "Right. I take it Magda spoke out of turn." "I actually spoke to my father, who suggested that it might be a good idea if I put out feelers to see if the gallery would sell easily. He was only thinking of you. It's not easy running a house and arranging business dinners and attending events without the pressure of running the gallery too. And let's be honest, once we have children that will mean more pressure on you. Unless you were thinking about getting a nanny. I guess I assumed you'd want to be home with them, but if I'm wrong I apologize. I was going to discuss it with you and I would have all the possibilities covered." "I must have missed something, Patrick. Did you already propose to me? I'm sure if you had I would remember it." He colored a little and sat back. "Oh, I guess it was a little forward, but I like to be prepared. I guess I just assumed you would say yes. After all, we've been together almost 4 years now. It's the logical next step. I apologize for hurting your feelings. We can shop for a ring tomorrow, will that get me off the hook?" I closed my eyes. This is not how it's supposed to happen. Patrick just assumed everything. He still wasn't asking me what I wanted. The silence stretched between us and I stared out the cafe window, then froze. For the briefest moment, I caught a glimpse of Esme and Jasper before they disappeared into the crowds packing the sidewalk. I wanted to run after them, but I knew my chance of finding them was slim to non-existent. So, instead, I just sat there staring at the spot I had seen them. "Bella? Bella? Are you listening to me?" I turned my attention back to Patrick. "Sorry. What did you say?" "I thought we were having a heart-to-heart and then you just ignored me. I asked you what you wanted me to do. I understand that I've messed up big time and I want to put it right. So, tell me how to do that." I shook my head. I couldn't get that image of Jasper and Esme out of my mind. "I don't know, Patrick. I don't know." He grasped my hand, holding it tight in his desperation. "Bella, I am truly sorry. Please forgive me. I love you and it's killing me that I've hurt you. I guess I got carried away. You know me, I'm a control freak at work, but I try so hard to leave it at the office. I shouldn't have assumed you would agree to marry me, although I think I had reason to do so. I should have talked things over with you, I see that now. I guess I allowed myself to be taken in by my father's words. My mother and Magda were both happy to live the life of a wife rather than a businesswoman. They found plenty of outlets for their energies, but I guess you see things differently. If you want to keep the gallery, then go ahead. When the children come along, I'm sure you can find someone to take it over. It's your business and you can decide. Am I getting there? He looked so desperate that I found myself nodding yes. At least you've acknowledged that I'm not like your stepmom or the other trophy wives. The gallery is important to me and I will decide what happens to it. I'd like to have control over my life, to decide what I do and where I go. I refuse to be dictated to. Again I thought. This was Edward all over again, but I'd never had the confidence to speak to him like this. Patrick had relaxed. Thank you, Bella. I do love you. Can I ask if we're still going to the cabin for Christmas? If not, I'll have to talk to my father, but I'd like to go. It will be romantic. Again I nodded, although I still had grave misgivings about it. Good. Right, let me buy you dinner and then we can talk about the future and you can tell me what you see. Then tomorrow, with your consent, we can look at rings. Things had been going well. I had guided Jasper closer to Bella than he had wanted to be and was just about to give him a nudge when I saw Patrick appear at her side. Jasper stiffened, his jaw set, but he said nothing. We followed them to a cafe and I was relieved when she saw us as I pulled them free of the crowd for a second. After hearing their conversation, I knew I needed a new plan, so I left Jasper watching Bella and headed back to the apartment. Why were men so thick-headed when it came to feelings? And why did Bella have to give Patrick a second chance? Even I had recognized that he was a second Edward. The only difference was that Patrick acknowledged his shortcomings. He might promise to change his ways, but it was an empty promise. I knew his type and Bella should too by now. I shook my head. These two young people needed a few more nudges or my Christmas wish was not going to come true. I sat in the darkness trying to work out what to do next. Then I remembered the masked ball. Well, I had Jasper's promise he would help, that is unless he spoke to Carlisle, in which case the game would be up and I would be facing some very difficult questions. I didn't have much time before Rosalie and Emmett got here, and although they felt Jasper was doing the right thing, that did not mean they would be willing to help me push my star-crossed young lovers into each other's arms. They might have to go house hunting with me if they arrived before 3 p.m., not that it would be a problem. Emmett was such a charmer that Chelsea would be putty in his hands. So far so good. I decided to do a little seasonal shopping on the internet before I checked in with Jasper again. I should make time to talk to Carlisle as well. I may have been angry with him, but I still loved and missed my soulmate. Happy with the work I had done, I caught up with Carlisle as I made my way back to Bella's place. It was a good sign that she hadn't gone back to Patrick's. It was a sure sign that she was still mad at him. Good move, Bella, don't make my life more difficult. Jasper looked dejected when I joined him, and when I heard Patrick snoring I understood why. He had wormed his way back into her affections even more quickly than I had imagined. What are her plans for tomorrow? Not sure. He's still talking about looking at rings. I smiled inwardly, knowing that if Patrick ever got a ring on her finger, she wasn't the girl I remembered. Subtlety wasn't getting me anywhere, so here goes bluntness. Jasper, isn't it about time you got off your butt and made a move? What? You heard me. Why is it so hard to admit that you're jealous? Jealous? Of what? Jasper, I've been around long enough to know when a guy is in love with a girl. Sitting here scowling won't win her. I think the sun is getting to you. Really? So you've been watching over Bella all this time from some sense of guilt? Yes. Excuse my language, but that's absolute bullshit and we both know it. You're in love with Bella, it's not difficult to see. No man would do what you've done if they didn't have feelings for the girl. She's involved with Patrick. They're getting engaged. Do not change the subject. She's with Patrick because she doesn't know how you feel. She doesn't see what she is losing. We both know he's not right for her, he'll only make her miserable. He's offering her everything I can't. A full life, the possibility of a family. A nice house and a successful husband. She's better off with him. Don't you think that's her choice to make? She's made it. I told you they are shopping for a ring tomorrow. You listen to me. Until he gets that ring on her finger, she's free to choose. You aren't giving her the choice and you aren't giving yourself one either. Now stop hiding in the shadows. When you came back from speaking to her at that Halloween party, you were a different man. You were happy, she makes you happy, and I truly believe you will make her happy. He shook his head. The one failing Jasper had was that he never thought enough of himself. I suspected that Maria had a lot to do with that, and losing Alice hadn't helped. Okay then. Explain to me why she has a painting of a Confederate officer on his steed hanging on her bedroom wall. Do you think that's a coincidence? So that's what he was talking about. He asked her about a picture on her wall, but I didn't know what he was talking about. He said something about her having a fixation with the valet. Exactly, she sees you at the party in costume and within days she buys that painting. Now call me an old romantic, but I know what that says to me. I left him alone after that to think about our conversation. If necessary I would drag him to Bella's feet, but I would prefer he did it himself if possible, and time was running out. Bella. I couldn't sleep, so once Patrick was snoring I got up and poured myself a glass of cold milk, then curled up on the couch. I wasn't even sure how he ended up staying here. I hadn't wanted him to, but I found myself feeling sorry for him. He had turned things around as if it was my fault we had argued. At the time I felt contrite, but now I was just tired and confused. The bickering hadn't ended when we got back either. When he saw the painting I had hung in my bedroom, he went over to study it. This is new. I don't remember seeing it before, or is it a family heirloom? It certainly looks old. I explained where I had bought it and he turned to me looking disgruntled. Should I be worried? You seem to have a thing for Confederate soldiers these days. It's a beautiful, poignant picture. It fires my imagination, and you're just being silly. They am I. I seem to remember you on the arm of just such a man at Abigail's party. We've already been through that. Patrick. The valet was kind enough to stop and talk to me when he saw I was on my own, and being a gentleman he escorted me back to the party. He snorted. Was he really jealous or just being awkward? Seems to me he was being just a little too solicitous. Anyhow, I don't like this. It doesn't fit with the decor in the room. In fact, it clashes horribly. You should hang it in the gallery. There's sure to be some idiot with more money than sense who'll buy it. Really? Well, I just happen to be that idiot, Patrick. My angry riposte stopped him cold, and once more I heard the excuse of his jet lag and the hard negotiations he had been involved in to get the business for the company. Personally, I thought they were pretty poor excuses for being disagreeable and petty, but I wasn't going to argue. Instead, I let him stay, although I was relieved when he fell almost instantly asleep. I think that was because I knew that either Jasper or Asm was out there in the dark watching over me. I closed my eyes, and when Patrick kissed me I fantasized I was in the arms of my mystery soldier. The trouble was that my mystery man was no longer a mystery. He had morphed into Jasper, and that both shocked and thrilled me. In the morning Patrick was ready to go shopping for a ring, but thankfully his father called and he had to go into the office instead. You do some window shopping, and when you find the ring you like, get them to put it aside, and then we'll go in together tomorrow and buy it. We can announce the engagement on Christmas Eve to the family. Picture it, Bella. A log fire, snow outside, and candles flickering. It means a party when we get back for all our friends, but that's fine. I can show you off again. Deciding that it was about time that I pointed out the flaw in his plans, I said, Patrick, you still haven't asked me officially. He waved me off. We both know the answer now. We cleared up the misunderstanding of last week, but if you like I'll do the whole down on one knee thing, I promise. I have to go now, but I'll pick you up at 6. Why? Where are we going? I'll be at the gallery until late and I still have some Christmas shopping to do. Bella, you have all day. Write a list and get your staff to pop out for you. Maybe they can sell that picture at the same time. It doesn't look right in here. Magda would throw a fit if she saw it there. And of course, his stepmother was the last word in decor and taste. He kissed me and left, which was just as well, as I might have thrown something at him if he'd stayed. Everything he said and did annoyed me since he got back, and I wondered if it was me. Was I just getting cold feet? Marriage was such a big step to be taking and I was scared. I kept questioning my feelings for him and wished I had someone I could call for some advice. However, Renee was out of the question and there was no one else. I spent the morning in the gallery, although I didn't get much done. I couldn't stop thinking about Patrick, marriage and Jasper. Aware that I was useless to the staff, I decided to make a start on my last-minute shopping. Avoiding jewelers, I wandered around looking for inspiration when I sensed that I wasn't alone, and suddenly there he was. Jasper Hale, standing a few feet away and looking at me. I smiled and moved to him quickly, afraid he might melt away into the crowd as he had done last night. Jasper. He nodded. Bella. Esme tells me that she's spoken to you. Yes. I understand. I have you to thank for my well-being. You're welcome. It was the least I could do. We stood there staring at each other while people flowed around us until I grasped the moment. Were you in a rush? I'd really like to talk to you. He shrugged. Actually, I'm here because of you. Still protecting me? It's become a habit. But while we're here, maybe you can help me find a Christmas gift for Esme. Alice used to do that kind of thing and I'm a bit lost. Sure. I glanced around. The place was full of people. We're going to get separated in the crowd if we're not careful. He offered me his arm and I took it, grinning. The last time you did that, you were playing the part of a zombie soldier. I should have stayed away from the party. You might have recognized me. I should have recognized you. I think the southern drawl threw me. Why didn't you tell me you were watching me? You were doing fine living your life and I didn't want to remind you of what had happened. I'll let you in on a little secret. I have a bite mark that reminds me every day. Besides, not everything that happened was bad. He raised an eyebrow. Really? It would appear that we remember things very differently. You seem to think I hate everything about that time, and it's not true. At least not once I got over being abandoned. You were always kind to me, so was Alice and Esme. I thought I'd never see any of you again. By the way, I'm sorry about Alice, Esme told me. She's happy and that's all that matters. He wasn't making things easy for me, and trying to talk in the crowded mall was almost impossible, so I guided him over to a small cafe where a table had just become available. It was still noisy, but at least we weren't being buffeted by the crowds. I ordered 2 coffees and watched as he positioned his chair so he could see the front door and into the kitchen. It was only when I noticed this that I understood he was still guarding me, yet Esme had told me that it was over and he would be leaving soon. Once our drinks arrived, I felt able to talk. I can never repay you for keeping me safe. You've had a miserable few years. If I'd known you were out there, I would have tried to make things easier. You were never supposed to know, Bella. You have your whole life ahead of you and you should be able to enjoy it. Edward should never have involved you in our life. I'm glad he did, and I never thought I would feel able to say that. I felt so alive during those months. He laughed and I realized just how handsome he was. I felt my heart skip a beat and took a sip of coffee to cover my embarrassment. Before I forget, Esme asked me to give you this. He pulled an envelope out of his pocket and passed it to me. Our fingers touched for a moment and I felt a shock run through me. Thank you. I think I know what it is. You are staying for the masked ball, aren't you? He nodded. Sure. I'm here until I know you're safe, but won't your boyfriend want to know why you have an invitation and he doesn't? I shrugged. Maybe. It was my way of seeing you. It was that important to you? Of course. Please tell me you aren't parking cars again this time. It will make talking difficult. I'll be sure to tell Esm. Maybe she'll allow me inside this time. I hope so. I might even persuade you to dance with me. His smile was more relaxed this time. Me dance? I'll probably be serving drinks. Then I'll dance with the waiter, tray and all. I might just hold you to that. He slid his coffee over to me, noticing I had finished mine, and I studied him as I drank. He really did remind me of the soldier in my painting. Maybe I could ask him about those days sometime. If, of course, there was another time. So, any ideas on a gift for Esm? I'd thought about the music box I had bought for her and decided a piece of jewelry to go inside would be nice, so I told him about it. Sounds great, shall we? He was waiting for me to stand so he could push my chair in and then held out his arm for me again. We were looking in a jeweler's window when he suddenly stiffened. What? Am I in danger? Not exactly, but unless I'm mistaken, that's your boyfriend and he's not looking too happy. I groaned as I saw Patrick cutting his way through the crowd to confront us. Bella, what's going on? Who is this? Jasper was faster than me. He held out a hand and put on his southern accent again. Pleased to meet you. I bumped into Bella this morning. We're old school friends. We were just catching up. Patrick ignored the outstretched hand. Well, I'd be obliged if you'd remove your hand from my fiancée's arm. I frowned at Patrick, half afraid Jasper might take offense at his words. Patrick, this is Jasper. We were at high school together in Forks. Really? Close friends were you? Please don't tell me you were getting advice on an engagement ring from your friend. Actually, Bella was helping me choose a gift for my mom. Patrick didn't look as if he believed Jasper, but he did cool down. And have you finished? I'm sorry to take Bella away from you, but we have things to discuss, Jasper. I was livid at his rudeness, but Jasper appeared to find it amusing. A smile spread across his face. No problem. He turned to me. I'll see you later for dinner. Patrick's face was puce. Dinner? I don't think so. We have plans. Both of them looked at me. It was my choice, and yet really there was no choice. I'm sorry, Patrick, but Jasper isn't in town for long and I do want to catch up. Tomorrow you and I can get together after the gallery closes. Jasper's face was unreadable, but Patrick's anger was only too visible. Bella. We only have a week before we leave for Christmas and there's lots to do. I'm sure your friend will understand. He glared at Jasper. We're getting engaged and I promised Bella I would take her shopping for a ring. Besides, we have a prior engagement this evening and it would be bad manners to let our friends down. Maybe the next time you visit Phoenix. Jasper merely shrugged. I'd sure hate to ruin your plans. I'll be around for a few days so Bella and I can meet up again before I leave. I'll call you, Bella. Good to meet you, Patrick. Once more he held out his hand and I glared at Patrick until he took it. I had to smile as Jasper walked away. It was plain that Patrick had tried to out-macho him by squeezing his hand as they shook. I was just glad Jasper hadn't broken any bones. If only Patrick knew how close a call that had been. Patrick was fuming at being shown up by a stranger and he dragged me into the same coffee shop I had recently left. 2 coffees, 1 decaf Americano and a cappuccino with cinnamon. He snapped our order and received a glare in return. Patrick, don't be rude. Rude? I find my fiancé hanging on the arm of some long-haired southern bumpkin and I'm supposed to smile and act as if everything is okay. Do you really think I believed that crap about you two being old school friends? I doubt he's ever been to school and certainly not in the back end of Washington state. Who is he? I merely stared at him for a moment in censure. Are you calling me a liar? That took the wind out of his sails. No, of course not. I just find it hard to believe he lived in Forks. Well, he did, and his father was the local doctor, so have a little respect. Jasper is a very old and valued friend and I do not appreciate you acting like a spoiled child in front of him. You were incredibly rude. He fumed quietly as our drinks arrived, then opened his mouth, but I shook my head. I'm not listening to any more from you. I don't know what's gotten into you recently, and don't give me that crap about jet lag and the pressure of work. If you can't say anything pleasant, then best keep your mouth shut. I had never spoken to Patrick like this before, and he was dumbfounded. It took him some time to pull himself together. I don't know what to say, Bella. Well, how about you try something civilized for a change? Try to see it from my point of view. I thought you were out looking for a ring, and I find you arm in arm with some stranger. What was I supposed to think? If you knew me, you would have asked instead of making a complete fool of yourself. Anyhow, I'm going home. I stood up and he scrambled to join me outside. Bella? What about the jewelers? What about this evening? I don't feel like looking for a ring, Patrick, and I am certainly not going out with you in this mood. Come back tomorrow when you've got your act together. He grabbed my arm and pulled me up sharp. I knew Jasper would be watching, and if I showed any sign that Patrick had heard me, he would be there, and this time Patrick wouldn't get off so easily. Let go before I call for security. Patrick stared into my eyes and saw that I meant what I said, then dropped my arm. Bella, I'm truly sorry. I just went crazy with jealousy. Please don't leave like this. You're breaking my heart. I shook my head and walked away. Patrick had an excuse for his behavior every time, but it was becoming clear to me that he wasn't the man I had thought. He was infantile and immature, and I wasn't sure I wanted him around any longer. I needed time to think. What scared me most was the thought that I might be seeing him in this light because I was comparing him to Jasper, who was much older and wiser, and I grabbed a cab and headed home, thinking furiously about my future. A future I had thought more or less planned out until I saw Jasper again. Bella. I couldn't sleep, so once Patrick was snoring, I got up and poured myself a glass of cold milk, then curled up on the couch. I wasn't even sure how he ended up staying here. I hadn't wanted him to, but I found myself feeling sorry for him. He had turned things around as if it was my fault we had argued. At the time I felt contrite, but now I was just tired and confused. The bickering hadn't ended when we got back either. When he saw the painting I had hung in my bedroom, he went over to study it. This is new. I don't remember seeing it before, or is it a family heirloom? It certainly looks old. I explained where I had bought it, and he turned to me looking disgruntled. Should I be worried? You seem to have a thing for Confederate soldiers these days. It's a beautiful, poignant picture. It fires my imagination, and you're just being silly. They am I. I seem to remember you on the arm of just such a man at Abigail's party. We've already been through that. Patrick. The valet was kind enough to stop and talk to me when he saw I was on my own, and being a gentleman, he escorted me back to the party. He snorted. Was he really jealous or just being awkward? Seems to me he was being just a little too solicitous. Anyhow, I don't like this. It doesn't fit with the decor in the room. In fact, it clashes horribly. You should hang it in the gallery. There's sure to be some idiot with more money than sense who'll buy it. Really? Well, I just happen to be that idiot, Patrick. My angry riposte stopped him cold, and once more I heard the excuse of his jet lag and the hard negotiations he had been involved in to get the business for the company. Personally, I thought they were pretty poor excuses for being disagreeable and petty, but I wasn't going to argue. Instead, I let him stay, although I was relieved when he fell almost instantly asleep. I think that was because I knew that either Jasper or Asm was out there in the dark watching over me. I closed my eyes, and when Patrick kissed me, I fantasized I was in the arms of my mystery soldier. The trouble was that my mystery man was no longer a mystery. He had morphed into Jasper, and that both shocked and thrilled me. In the morning, Patrick was ready to go shopping for a ring, but thankfully his father called and he had to go into the office instead. You do some window shopping, and when you find the ring you like, get them to put it aside, and then we'll go in together tomorrow and buy it. We can announce the engagement on Christmas Eve to the family. Picture it, Bella. A log fire, snow outside, and candles flickering. It means a party when we get back for all our friends, but that's fine. I can show you off again. Deciding that it was about time that I pointed out the flaw in his plans, I said, Patrick, you still haven't asked me officially. He waved me off. We both know the answer now. We cleared up the misunderstanding of last week, but if you like, I'll do the whole down on one knee thing, I promise. I have to go now, but I'll pick you up at 6. Why? Where are we going? I'll be at the gallery until late and I still have some Christmas shopping to do. Bella, you have all day. Write a list and get your staff to pop out for you. Maybe they can sell the picture at the same time. It doesn't look right in here. Magda would throw a fit if she saw it there. And of course, his stepmother was the last word in decor and taste. He kissed me and left, which was just as well, as I might have thrown something at him if he'd stayed. Everything he said and did annoyed me since he got back, and I wondered if it was me. Was I just getting cold feet? Marriage was such a big step to be taking and I was scared. I kept questioning my feelings for him and wished I had someone I could call for some advice. However, Renee was out of the question and there was no one else. I spent the morning in the gallery, although I didn't get much done. I couldn't stop thinking about Patrick, marriage and Jasper. Aware that I was useless to the staff, I decided to make a start on my last-minute shopping. Avoiding jewelers, I wandered around looking for inspiration when I sensed that I wasn't alone, and suddenly there he was. Jasper Hale, standing a few feet away and looking at me. I smiled and moved to him quickly, afraid he might melt away into the crowd as he had done last night. Jasper. He nodded. Bella. Esme tells me that she's spoken to you. Yes. I understand. I have you to thank for my well-being. You're welcome. It was the least I could do. We stood there staring at each other while people flowed around us until I grasped the moment. Are you in a rush? I'd really like to talk to you. He shrugged. Actually, I'm here because of you. Still protecting me? It's become a habit. But while we're here, maybe you can help me find a Christmas gift for Esme. Alice used to do that kind of thing and I'm a bit lost. Sure. I glanced around. The place was full of people. We're going to get separated in the crowd if we're not careful. He offered me his arm and I took it, grinning. The last time you did that, you were playing the part of a zombie soldier. I should have stayed away from the party. You might have recognized me. I should have recognized you. I think the southern drawl threw me. Why didn't you tell me you were watching me? You were doing fine living your life and I didn't want to remind you of what had happened. I'll let you in on a little secret. I have a bite mark that reminds me every day. Besides, not everything that happened was bad. He raised an eyebrow. Really? It would appear that we remember things very differently. You seem to think I hate everything about that time, and it's not true. At least not once I got over being abandoned. You were always kind to me, so was Alice and Esme. I thought I'd never see any of you again. By the way, I'm sorry about Alice, Esme told me. She's happy and that's all that matters. He wasn't making things easy for me, and trying to talk in the crowded mall was almost impossible, so I guided him over to a small cafe where a table had just become available. It was still noisy, but at least we weren't being buffeted by the crowds. I ordered 2 coffees and watched as he positioned his chair so he could see the front door and into the kitchen. It was only when I noticed this that I understood he was still guarding me, yet Esme had told me that it was over and he would be leaving soon. Once our drinks arrived, I felt able to talk. I can never repay you for keeping me safe. You've had a miserable few years. If I'd known you were out there, I would have tried to make things easier. You were never supposed to know, Bella. You have your whole life ahead of you and you should be able to enjoy it. Edward should never have involved you in our life. I'm glad he did, and I never thought I would feel able to say that. I felt so alive during those months. He laughed and I realized just how handsome he was. I felt my heart skip a beat and took a sip of coffee to cover my embarrassment. Before I forget, Esme asked me to give you this. He pulled an envelope out of his pocket and passed it to me. Our fingers touched for a moment and I felt a shock run through me. Thank you. I think I know what it is. You are staying for the masked ball, aren't you? He nodded, sure. I'm here until I know you're safe, but won't your boyfriend want to know why you have an invitation and he doesn't? I shrugged, maybe. It was my way of seeing you. It was that important to you? Of course. Please tell me you aren't parking cars again this time. It will make talking difficult. I'll be sure to tell Esm. Maybe she'll allow me inside this time. I hope so. I might even persuade you to dance with me. His smile was more relaxed this time. Me dance? I'll probably be serving drinks. Then I'll dance with the waiter, tray and all. I might just hold you to that. He slid his coffee over to me, noticing I had finished mine, and I studied him as I drank. He really did remind me of the soldier in my painting. Maybe I could ask him about those days sometime. If, of course, there was another time. So, any ideas on a gift for Esm? I'd thought about the music box I had bought for her and decided a piece of jewelry to go inside would be nice, so I told him about it. Sounds great, shall we? He was waiting for me to stand so he could push my chair in and then held out his arm for me again. We were looking in a jeweler's window when he suddenly stiffened. What? Am I in danger? Not exactly, but unless I'm mistaken, that's your boyfriend and he's not looking too happy. I groaned as I saw Patrick cutting his way through the crowd to confront us. Bella, what's going on? Who is this? Jasper was faster than me. He held out a hand and put on his southern accent again. Pleased to meet you. I bumped into Bella this morning. We're old school friends. We were just catching up. Patrick ignored the outstretched hand. Well, I'd be obliged if you'd remove your hand from my fiancée's arm. I frowned at Patrick, half afraid Jasper might take offense at his words. Patrick, this is Jasper. We were at high school together in Forks. Really? Close friends were you? Please don't tell me you were getting advice on an engagement ring from your friend. Actually, Bella was helping me choose a gift for my mom. Patrick didn't look as if he believed Jasper, but he did cool down. And have you finished? I'm sorry to take Bella away from you, but we have things to discuss, Jasper. I was livid at his rudeness, but Jasper appeared to find it amusing. A smile spread across his face. No problem. He turned to me. I'll see you later for dinner. Patrick's face was puce. Dinner? I don't think so. We have plans. Both of them looked at me. It was my choice, and yet really there was no choice. I'm sorry, Patrick, but Jasper isn't in town for long and I do want to catch up. Tomorrow you and I can get together after the gallery closes. Jasper's face was unreadable, but Patrick's anger was only too visible. Bella. We only have a week before we leave for Christmas and there's lots to do. I'm sure your friend will understand. He glared at Jasper. We're getting engaged and I promised Bella I would take her shopping for a ring. Besides, we have a prior engagement this evening and it would be bad manners to let our friends down. Maybe the next time you visit Phoenix. Jasper merely shrugged. I'd sure hate to ruin your plans. I'll be around for a few days so Bella and I can meet up again before I leave. I'll call you, Bella. Good to meet you, Patrick. Once more he held out his hand and I glared at Patrick until he took it. I had to smile as Jasper walked away. It was plain that Patrick had tried to out-macho him by squeezing his hand as they shook. I was just glad Jasper hadn't broken any bones. If only Patrick knew how close a call that had been. Patrick was fuming at being shown up by a stranger and he dragged me into the same coffee shop I had recently left. 2 coffees, 1 decaf Americano and a cappuccino with cinnamon. He snapped our order and received a glare in return. Patrick, don't be rude. Rude? I find my fiancée hanging on the arm of some long-haired southern bumpkin and I'm supposed to smile and act as if everything is okay. Do you really think I believe that crap about you two being old school friends? I doubt he's ever been to school and certainly not in the back end of Washington state. Who is he? I merely stared at him for a moment in censure. Are you calling me a liar? That took the wind out of his sails. No, of course not. I just find it hard to believe he lived in Forks. Well, he did, and his father was the local doctor, so have a little respect. Jasper is a very old and valued friend, and I do not appreciate you acting like a spoiled child in front of him. You were incredibly rude. He fumed quietly as our drinks arrived, then opened his mouth, but I shook my head. I'm not listening to any more from you. I don't know what's gotten into you recently, and don't give me that crap about jet lag and the pressure of work. If you can't say anything pleasant, then best keep your mouth shut. I had never spoken to Patrick like this before, and he was dumbfounded. It took him some time to pull himself together. I don't know what to say, Bella. Well, how about you try something civilized for a change? Try to see it from my point of view. I thought you were out looking for a ring, and I find you arm in arm with some stranger. What was I supposed to think? If you knew me, you would have asked instead of making a complete fool of yourself. Anyhow, I'm going home. I stood up and he scrambled to join me outside. Bella? What about the jewelers? What about this evening? I don't feel like looking for a ring, Patrick, and I am certainly not going out with you in this mood. Come back tomorrow when you've got your act together. He grabbed my arm and pulled me up sharp. I knew Jasper would be watching, and if I showed any sign that Patrick had heard me, he would be there, and this time Patrick wouldn't get off so easily. Let go before I call for security. Patrick stared into my eyes and saw that I meant what I said, then dropped my arm. Bella, I'm truly sorry. I just went crazy with jealousy. Please don't leave like this. You're breaking my heart. I shook my head and walked away. Patrick had an excuse for his behavior every time, but it was becoming clear to me that he wasn't the man I had thought. He was infantile and immature, and I wasn't sure I wanted him around any longer. I needed time to think. What scared me most was the thought that I might be seeing him in this light because I was comparing him to Jasper, who was much older and wiser, and I grabbed a cab and headed home, thinking furiously about my future. A future I had thought more or less planned out until I saw Jasper again. Bella. I was so angry with Patrick that I wanted to scream. I knew right then that whatever happened, I was never going to marry him. There was too much of Edward in his makeup, and I was lucky that I'd recognized it before it was too late. Ever want to date over an answer? He turned up an hour after I left him with a huge bouquet of lilies, as if that would change anything, and stood like an eager puppy waiting to be invited in. I just stood in the doorway and waited. Bella, I'm so sorry. He hesitated, then said, Aren't you going to invite me in? I'm trying to apologize and make things right. I shook my head. No. I'm not. It's over, and I'd like you to leave, Patrick. He was stunned. What? Stop being melodramatic. You're overreacting. Come on, Bella. Don't keep me standing out here like a stranger. It's humiliating. So was the way you behaved earlier. Just go, Patrick. I should have seen this much sooner. You and I just won't work. I don't fit in with the way you see things, and I don't intend to change. Not for you, not for anyone. I almost did that once before. You mean the guy back in Forks? His eyes narrowed in suspicion. It wasn't the guy you were with earlier, was it? No, it wasn't, and Jasper has nothing to do with this. Well, I guess he has, because I finally saw the real you, Patrick, and I didn't like what I saw. Now please go. He tried to peer over my shoulder. Is he here? Is that why you won't let me in? No, I said wearily, I'm alone, and that's the way that I want it. Just go. He thrust the flowers at me and started to turn away. I'm sorry, Bella. You obviously need time to calm down. I know that my actions earlier weren't appropriate. I'm just so crazy about you that I overreacted when I saw you arm in arm with another guy. Please call me in the morning. We can work this out. I know we can. I shook my head and let the flowers fall to the floor, then shut the door on them and him. I had no idea if he left or was still waiting there, and I didn't care. I had a quick shower and pulled on some comfortable sweats, then curled up on the sofa with a mug of coffee, a pack of Pop-Tarts, and the TV remote. It reminded me of times in my teens when I was fed up and wanted some comfort. I had hoped to find a program to stop me from thinking about the last few disastrous hours, but nothing held my interest. It was over for Patrick and me, that I was sure of. As for Jasper, well, I had to admit that I was drawn to him. He was my guardian angel, but more than that, he was my dream lover. Another vampire in my life. I smiled. Did I have a death wish? The phone rang stridently, making me jump, and I checked the caller dial in trepidation. If it was Patrick, I was not going to answer. When I saw it was a number I didn't recognize, I almost ignored it, but then decided that would be cowardly. If it was Patrick using a friend's phone, I would merely cut the connection. Unfortunately, while not Patrick, it was another equally unwanted caller, Renee. It appeared that Patrick had been on the phone to her in pieces and begging her to talk to me on his behalf. Bella, Patrick is in a terrible state. The poor boy is devastated. He knows he acted stupidly, but he's very contrite. What on earth were you doing hanging about with another guy? Didn't you think it would hurt Patrick if he found out? He said the guy's name was Jasper. Didn't Edward have a brother called Jasper? Please tell me you haven't gotten involved with that family again. Remember how they treated you in the past. Charlie and I were worried about your sanity and your health back then. What is going on with you? One day you were getting engaged to Patrick, making wedding plans, and the next you throw his flowers in his face and lock him out. I waited until she finally wound down, which took some time, then took a deep breath and tried to make her understand the situation. I ignored her questions about Jasper and focused on Patrick and his domineering attitude. Though, Bella, Patrick just wants the best for you, and let's be honest, how many guys worry about their wife's future? Did your father concern himself with what I wanted to do? No. At least Patrick is thinking ahead. He's right too. When you have children, you won't have time to run a gallery, you may even be too busy before that. Businessmen have a very hectic social life, and that means you too. Am I the only one who finds it annoying that he hasn't even proposed to me yet? He's planning my future. Well, no. But he is going to pop the question at Christmas. Isn't that romantic? And you know this, how exactly? Well, he happened to mention it. And I notice you are avoiding my questions about this Jasper person Patrick found you with. I am not avoiding them, and Patrick didn't find me with anyone. I was in a public place, a crowded mall. I wasn't doing anything wrong, and he's a friend, an old friend. Patrick acted like a hormonal teenager. It was very embarrassing. I'm just glad Jasper ignored his rudeness. Most guys would have punched Patrick in the mouth. Is he one of the Cullens? And there it was, the direct question. Well, I was not going to lie to my mom. No, his name is Jasper Hale. Although he was living with the Cullens when they were in Forks. Renee's voice raised several octaves. I knew it. Is Edward back too? You need to stay away from that family, Bella. They're bad news. You had your heart broken once, and now they're back to ruin your chances of a good life with Patrick. Please, Bella. Don't do it. Call Patrick. Explain how you feel. I know he'll listen to you. He's desperate to put things right. I'll think about it. Right now I'm tired. I just want to go to bed. Bella. I'll call you first thing in the morning. Don't do anything silly, this is your future. I know how easy it is to make stupid decisions in the heat of the moment. Deciding bed was probably the best place for me right now. Before I said something we would both regret, I said goodbye. Renee's digs about her relationship with my dad hadn't been helpful or necessary. The moonlight illuminated the painting on my wall, and I lay there staring at it. Is there room on that horse for me? Let's just take off across that meadow and not stop until we're far away from everyone. When I took over from Jasper that evening, he filled me in on what had happened at the mall. It seemed neither of them had made the first crucial move, but at least they were talking and she knew he was here. So what do you think of Patrick now you've officially met? He's an idiot. I don't know what Bella sees in him. You know, he tried to crush my hand when we shook. I thought only kids did that. Was she pleased to see you? He shrugged. Well, she didn't run screaming in the opposite direction. Jasper, for heaven's sake. It's as clear as the nose on your face that the girl has feelings for you. You've only got to see that painting on her wall. I've seen it, Esm. It's just a painting and she runs a gallery. Bella's into paintings. I rolled my eyes. Why did men find it so difficult to get to grips with their own emotions? Did you give her the ticket? Yes. And did she ask if you were going? She mentioned it. Good. Well, it's a start. Now come on. Rose and Emmett are dying to see you and I know he could do with some help. Rose is trying to rein in his festive overkill. There's no need to watch over Bella any longer. He eyed me suspiciously. There isn't. No. I may have twisted the truth just a little when I said Carlyle had heard Bella was still in danger. Twisted the truth a little? What does that mean? I sighed. It means I needed a way to keep you here until you found the courage to talk to Bella. So you lied to me? I pulled a face. Lied is such an emotive word. I was just looking out for you. Besides, you can't leave now. You've told Bella you'll be at the ball. He shook his head in bewilderment, and I thought I could trust you, Esm. I smiled and put a hand on his shoulder. You can, my love. I'm looking out for you, and the alternative was to knock your heads together, so consider yourself lucky you got off lightly. Now come on. We have a house to decorate. Who knows, we might even have company for the festive season. Bella. I had a stiff neck when I woke the following morning. I had fallen asleep sitting up and my pillows had slipped onto the floor. It was going to be one of those days, I could feel it. I glanced at my phone, which I had silenced the night before, and saw the message icon was flashing. Putting it back down by the side of the bed, I decided I needed time to decide what I was going to do before I spoke to Renee or Patrick. Time and several strong coffees. Patrick had been loving, caring and thoughtful towards me at first, but when I looked back on our relationship I should have seen the warning signs. When things were going his way he was charming and delightful, but if he was crossed or thwarted he would change. Then a different side of his character appeared. Everyone brushed it off with a joke as his business facey, but it was more than that. Patrick didn't like it if he couldn't get his own way. I had been easy to get along with. I never argued with him and only rarely put my foot down, which he found amusing. Recently, however, he had become more demanding and less thoughtful. Now he assumed that I would go along with his plans for us to get married without even needing to be asked. He wanted me to be like Magda and his friends' wives, who looked good, smiled a lot and acted the part of perfect hostess at dinners and parties. Well, that just wasn't going to happen. I was nothing like those women, nor did I intend to become one. And as for selling the gallery, what right did he have to go behind my back and scheme with Chelsea to sell it off? It had nothing to do with him or her, for that matter. I hesitated before leaving the apartment. Here I was safe. Patrick didn't have a key, but I couldn't keep him out of the gallery. I was tempted to take a day off, but that wasn't me either. I needed to confront this problem, and if he turned up, then that's just what I would do. I wasn't going to start hiding, not from him or Renee. I collected my phone and saw I had 3 messages from Renee and a dozen from Patrick. With a sigh, I began scrolling through the former and deleting the latter. Things were quiet at the gallery this morning and I began to relax. Maybe Patrick had finally accepted that I didn't want to talk to him, and with luck Renee was busy. Suddenly I heard the sound of Patrick's car as it pulled up outside, and not wanting to entertain the staff and clients with my domestic problems, I grabbed my jacket and went to confront him. He looked as if he'd slept in his suit. It was so rumpled and his eyes were red-rimmed. Bella, we need to talk. I've been up all night trying to work out how I can make things right. He was pacing back and forth, wringing his hands, and people were beginning to stare. Patrick, stop this. Why aren't you at work? He stopped pacing and stared at me, eyes wide with incomprehension. Work? How can I work when my world has just exploded? Don't you understand, Bella? I love you. I have a life with you all planned out. You have to listen to me. Please, Bella. I sighed. It was obvious he wasn't going to leave until he had talked to me, so I nodded. Okay, come inside. I'll get some coffee. He shook his head emphatically. No. Not here. I need to talk to you, Bella. On our own. You have to listen to me. His eyes were brimming with tears, although whether of sorrow or frustration I couldn't tell. Then where? The botanical gardens. We can find a quiet place there. You love the gardens. I did, and I didn't want that to be ruined by an argument with Patrick, but at least it was public. I certainly wasn't going to suggest my place or his. Okay, I'll get my car keys. He grabbed my hand and I felt that he was shaking. Close up, it was apparent that he hadn't slept at all. No. We can take mine, it's here. I can't be away long. I have an important call coming through in a couple of hours. I'll get you back, I promise. Please, Bella. It's important. Reluctantly, I followed him to his car and climbed in. As I did so, I checked for my cell phone and realized I had left it on my desk, but before I could say anything, he took off way too fast. Slow down, Patrick, please. He nodded and eased off on the gas pedal, but his driving remained erratic, and I was relieved when we arrived at the gardens. No. There are too many people here. He was gazing around the parking lot. Too many. I'll find somewhere else. I opened my mouth to protest, but we were already rejoining the flow of traffic headed out of the city. Where are we going, Patrick? Stop and we can talk. Patrick, listen to me. I heard the panic in my voice. I should never have gotten into his car. I was a fool, and now I had to find a way to make him stop. His driving was frightening me, and I begged him to slow down. You have to listen, Bella. I love you. I need you. It's all planned out. We're going to be so happy. You can't leave me. Do you understand? He was staring at me and I had to scream at him to watch the road. Listen to me, Bella. You have to forgive me. I'm so sorry. I love you. He was crying, his hands shaking on the wheel, and he continued to stare at me. Do you understand? Here, look. He scrambled about in his pocket and pulled out a small box, fumbling within the catch. Look. I glanced down and saw it was a ring with a huge diamond setting. See. I love you. You have to marry me, Bella. I opened my mouth to speak, and suddenly there was an ear-splitting blare of horns and screech of tires. I never had time to reply to him before the truck hit. Jasper. It was great to see Emmett and Rose again, especially as they now not only understood why I had been shadowing Bella but agreed it was the least we could do. Rose especially made a big thing about apologizing to me. She and I had become close during my time with the family, and it had hurt me that she refused to give Bella a chance. After a hug that would have cracked ribs if that were possible, she pulled me down beside her on the couch. Jazz, I know I was a bitch, but I was right. Bella didn't belong. Not with Edward anyhow. I could see that, and so could Alice. I think she saw something, although she never said so in as many words. When she volunteered to run from James with Bella, I was shocked. So was Emmett. I mean, let's be fair, if anyone could track down and stop James, it was you. Yet Alice persuaded Carlisle that you and she should be the ones to guard Bella. I never understood that at the time, but I think I do now. She was beaming at me and I knew I was missing something. I'm not with you, Rose. She smiled and touched my cheek. Sure, you are, brother. Alice saw that you and Bella belonged together and did all she could to push you into her life. I think part of Edward's jealousy of the wolf boy was misplaced. He felt that someone was a threat to his relationship with Bella, but he chose the wrong target. You mean he should have been watching me? I would never have come between Edward and Bella. That would have been wrong. Actually, stupid. Allowing her to get tied up with our dear brother was wrong. I hoped to drive her away by being a bitch, but she just kept coming back for more. Now, it's your chance and no one is standing in your way. Rose, were you not listening to us earlier? Bella has a boyfriend. A boyfriend who intends to ask her hand in marriage. If that's not someone standing in my way, I don't know what is. She waved a hand airily. Yes, but that's different. From what I hear, he's an idiot and certainly not right for Bella. It's your turn to step up and the masked ball will be a perfect time. Esme told me that Bella asked if you would be there, and we both know that she has serious reservations about the boyfriend. So, get in there. Turn on that southern charm and win the lady's heart. I laughed. You sound like a romance novel. She smiled. And what's wrong with that? We all need a little romance in our lives. Anyhow, Emmett and I are rooting for you. It seemed that everyone had seen what I had missed until very recently, or at least refused to even consider. I was in love with Bella, but I still wasn't sure I was any better for her than Edward or this Patrick. At least Patrick could offer her a good life with no worries and a family. All things I couldn't compete with. The only thing I had that he didn't was an endless eternal love for the woman. I discovered that Rosalie had taken it upon herself to source my outfit for the masked ball, and I was presented with another Confederate uniform, only this time without the bloodstains and bandages. It was that of a Confederate major, complete with a sword. Rose, I don't think it's allowed to take weapons into a charity ball. That's okay, it's a ceremonial sword, look. No edge to it. As far as I was concerned, it still constituted a lethal weapon, but I wasn't going to argue with my sister. When I came downstairs dressed ready for the ball, Rose took a photograph. I'm going to frame this. You look dashing, Major Whitlock. It felt strange to be in uniform again, especially as it was another authentic one and felt like an old friend. Don't lay it on too thick, Rose. She grinned at me. She won't be able to resist you. I was picked up in a bear-like grip and Emmett spun me around. I can't resist you either, Major. Can I have this dance? When Esme appeared, Emmett and I were rolling around on the floor like a couple of teenagers, but she merely rolled her eyes. It's like running a kindergarten. Now boys, play nicely. Jasper, you are going to ruin your uniform, for heaven's sake, get up. Emmett was first up and went whooping up the stairs. Hey Scarlet, the Confederates are here, flee for your life. Rose stared after him with an indulgent smile. You know, I haven't seen him so happy since before we left Forks. Maybe this is the beginning of good times again. That will be my Christmas wish. Mine too, Rose. Carlisle is due on the 24th and I just know it's going to be a happy Christmas for us all. I still wasn't so sure, but I didn't want to dampen their festive spirit, so I busied myself straightening up my uniform, then followed Esme to the car. Tonight, it appeared, was make or break time. Bella. I awoke to find myself on a trolley in the air, although for a few seconds I couldn't remember how I got here. As I tried to get up, I felt a pain in my arm and looked down to see it sported a cast. I groaned pitifully. Oh great. Our sleeping beauty has awoken. Do you know where you are, Bella? Do you remember what happened to you? I glanced over to see a doctor sitting at the table scribbling notes. As there was no one else in the room, I assumed it was he who had spoken. Where is here? Arizona General Hospital. You were in an accident. I groaned. Suddenly I remembered. The horns and the screeching sound followed by a terrible bang, then nothing. He stood up and walked over. You were lucky. One broken wrist, a deep cut to your left leg, a couple of cracked ribs, some bruising and a bump on the head. You'll live. Well, that explained the thumping in my head and the ache in my chest. Then I remembered Patrick. I was going to say boyfriend, but I couldn't bring myself to call him that any longer. My friend. Is he okay? Yes. He's outside waiting. The impact was on your side of the vehicle, so he got off lightly. I heard Patrick's voice from the corridor. I have to see my fiancée. Is she conscious yet? The doctor glanced at the door. Your fiancé seems anxious to see you. I know, but I'm not as anxious to see him, and I am not his fiancée. Yeah, I noticed the absence of a ring. Do you want me to stall him while we find a bed for you? A bed? I'm not staying. As your doctor, I have to advise you that it wouldn't be wise to leave. Let us keep you under observation for a couple of days. You were knocked out and the gash on your leg is pretty deep. You need that IV in, for now, antibiotics. I hadn't noticed the IV line snaking across my arm to a cannula in my hand, but when I did I flinched. I hated needles, almost as much as I hated hospitals. The very smell made me feel sick. He checked the computer screen in front of him. Well, now. I have you down for a room in the private wing so you'll be very well looked after. I need to get home. Why? Do you have a pet that needs feeding? I'm sure your friend would be only too happy to help you out. I glared at him. Are you going to take this IV out or am I? You can give me antibiotics to take and I promise to rest, but I'm not staying here. Well, you can't drive yourself home and cabs are very expensive. Especially when you don't have a pocketbook. Or at least none that was brought in with you. I groaned again. It seemed to be all I could do, but I continued to glare at him until he shrugged and came over to take the IV out. You know this isn't sensible, I take it. I know, but I have a thing about hospitals and I promise to go straight home to bed. If anything changes, I'll come straight back, but I'll be fine. Now if you could just give me the discharge form to sign. The doctor rolled his eyes as he slapped a band-aid on the side of the IV. So, you know the procedure? Why do I always have to get the difficult patients? Patrick was still making a nuisance of himself in the corridor, so I asked the doctor to let him in. You should probably ask him to get you some fresh clothes. Those you were wearing are pretty cut up and bloodied. You might have trouble getting a cab dressed as a car wreck victim. Which reminds me, there is a cop outside waiting to take a statement from you. Shall I send him in? Just give me a few minutes. Thank you. He sighed and then opened the door and called Patrick inside, shutting the door on us as he left. Patrick ran to me and stood there awkwardly trying to hug me without hurting me. I'm fine. See? Apologies tumbled out one after the other, and then when he finally realized that I was okay, he pulled that ring out of his pocket and tried to slip it onto my finger. Pulling away, I stared at him. What are you doing? What I started before the accident. I shook my head and got to my feet, swaying unsteadily for a moment. He was unbelievable. What are you doing, Bella? Everything's arranged. Your medical bills are taken care of and I got you a private room. Then when you've recovered sufficiently, I'll take you home. I'm not staying, there's no need. Sweetie, don't be silly. Of course you can't go home yet. We don't have anyone medically qualified to look after you. What if you have a concussion? What if you start to bleed? I'll be fine. Bella, when you are ready, I'm taking you home with me. I've already spoken to Magda and she's arranging for a nurse to look after you. So you see, it's all under control. You mean under your control, Patrick, and that's not going to happen. I told you it's over between us and nothing has changed. Bella, I nearly lost you. I won't make that mistake again. I'll change, you'll see. I love you. You have to give me a second chance. Patrick, no. You and I just won't work. Trust me, we would only make each other unhappy. Now please, leave so I can rustle up some clothes and arrange a lift home. Bella, you're still groggy. You can't just up and leave. There's a cop outside who needs to speak to you about the accident. I spoke to the truck driver and he's agreed to back up our story. You and I fought, you freaked out and tried to grab the wheel, the car swerved and he couldn't avoid hitting us. I stared at him in disbelief. This was the man who vowed that he loved me. The same man who wanted me to take the blame for the accident that he had caused. I wasn't sure what to say. Maybe I was still unconscious and dreaming. He just stood there staring at me for the longest time. What's wrong? I mean, I can't lose my license and I knew you wouldn't mind. It's not as if you drive much anyhow. I doubt the cops will do anything, and my dad plays golf with their chief, so he'll have a quiet word and slip a few $1,000 into the benevolent fund. I think I'm going to throw up. Patrick stepped back alarmed. I'll get the doctor. I don't need a doctor. You're the one making me feel sick. Go to hell, Patrick. I'm not lying for you. His face twisted. There's someone else, isn't there? That Jasper guy. We were fine until he arrived. No, things weren't fine, Patrick. They haven't been fine for a while. I should have broken things off a long while ago. I was in a relationship where my life was planned for me once before. It was a disaster and I'm not going down that road again. As for Jasper, he's a friend, nothing more. It felt like a lie, but I wasn't going to try explaining my feelings for Jasper to Patrick. He would never understand, how could he? I wasn't sure I understood myself, but looking at Patrick I knew that if my heart belonged to anyone it certainly wasn't him. I felt nothing for him, he could have been a stranger. When I saw Jasper in the mall my heart skipped a beat. It felt right walking with him arm in arm and I knew those feelings meant something. Ignoring Patrick's whining pleas mixed with half threats I checked the closet in the room and found a white coat which I slipped on over my gown. Dipping my things out of the plastic bag they had been stuffed in I understood what the doctor had meant. Both my top and pants had been cut off and were wrinkled and blood-stained, but I did manage to retrieve my sneakers. Bella. Stop this now. You're obviously concussed. You need to stay here. I'm going to fetch the doctor. Now please, lay down and rest. He pushed me gently towards the trolley and I glared at him. Don't touch me, Patrick. Bella, see. You were being irrational. That just shows you're not thinking straight. Things will look better when you've had some rest. We can talk then. Talk? What's the point, Patrick? You aren't going to listen, you never do unless it's something you want to hear. It's over. Just accept it. He placed the ring on the edge of the trolley. Please, Bella. Don't do this to me. I love you and you love me. You're just mixed up and that's completely understandable. Now, lay down and let me put this on you. Then I'll get the doctor and call your mom. Don't you dare. I do not want her fussing over me. I grabbed the ring and dropped it into his hand. And take this with you. It's over. He nodded, concussion. Then went to the door, peering out to look for a member of staff. Not seeing anyone, he went out into the corridor and shut the door, which was my cue. I struggled with the white coat. I couldn't do all the buttons up but pulled it closed and then slipped into my sneakers. Laces were beyond me right now, so I tucked them inside the shoes and prayed they would stay on long enough for me to get out of here. During the room doors would open, the window relieved that we were on the ground floor, and with some difficulty and a lot of pain I let myself out. Once in it I could wait on my man and struggled to breathe shallowly so as not to start the stabbing pains in my chest. I was going to need something for the pain soon. Whatever pain relief the doctor had given me was probably already wearing off. I limped over to some trash containers and under the low lighting, I checked my pockets and found my keys. I threw the plastic bag in the trash and made my way slowly out of the grounds, keeping to the shadows. I knew Patrick would be looking for me soon enough but hoped the doctor wouldn't call security as he knew I had planned on leaving. As for the cops, well, I would worry about them later. Once off the grounds, I checked the flotsam from my pockets. Not much there. Some change in Esm's business card that Patrick had given me. I tried to concentrate. I could hardly walk home and I didn't have the money for a cab. Everyone I thought of was either connected with Patrick in some way or was a business associate, and I couldn't call on any of them for help. That left me with only one possibility unless I was willing to give in and return to the ER. As I turned hesitantly to look back at the lights of the hospital, a coach went by with a colorful banner on the side and I groaned. The charity masked ball would be starting soon. Well, I wasn't going to make it to that. I hurt from head to toe, felt sick, chilled and tired. The shock was probably setting in. I needed somewhere to rest and sooner I might collapse on the street. I don't know why I came to the ball. Bella had a boyfriend, was practically engaged to the guy, and just because I didn't think he was right for her didn't mean that she would feel the same way. They had been together for more than 3 years, so she must be aware of his shortcomings. I shouldn't have listened to Esme and got my hopes up. If I had continued to keep my feelings for Bella buried deep, I wouldn't feel such a miserable fool right now. Esm told me that I was being impatient because Bella hadn't been knocking at the door the moment the ball started. Girls like to be late, they think it looks better. She doesn't want to appear too eager. So, you still think she's going to show up? Of course, I've seen the way she looks at you. Bella is shy, she's still coming to terms with her feelings. Besides, she might be having trouble with Patrick. He's crazy about her and I don't think he's going to take no for an answer. He can be very persuasive. Exactly, and let's be fair, she never said she was definitely coming. She just asked if I was. Jasper. She asked me to engineer that invitation so she could talk to you. But she already has. I think you are seeing things that just aren't there. Asm took my arm, give it another hour for me. I agreed reluctantly, although it did give Asm someone to dance with when she wasn't talking to prospective clients. Asm never felt comfortable being close to humans, so she would never accept a dance invitation from anyone other than Carlisle, Emmett or myself. People kept turning up but there was no sign of Bella, and by 11 I couldn't take it any longer. I would go back to the house, pick up my stuff and leave Phoenix. My job was done, Bella was safe, so my life was my own again. What I would do with it I had no idea, but it seemed that Bella didn't feature in my future however much I wanted her to. Esm did her best to persuade me to stay, but I was adamant. I knew she was hoping for the family to be together this Christmas. Rose and Emmett were back and Carlisle was due tomorrow. With Edward and Alice off with their respective partners, I didn't want to be the odd one out. She tried to force me into promising I would go to Boulder. If you don't want to spend Christmas with us, that's your choice, but I hate to think of you all alone, Jasper. Please, at least promise me you'll spend the festive season with your friends. I kissed her on the cheek as stop worrying about me. I'll be fine and I promise to keep in touch. Spend Christmas with your family and enjoy it. She sighed. Jasper, you are family. Surely you realize that by now. Take care and look after yourself. I still think you were wrong about Bella. I glanced around. I think her absence speaks for itself. Now go, I see one of the staff trying to get your attention. Merry Christmas, Esm. I walked back to the house ignoring the Christmas lights and the festive spirit of the city. My own mood was much darker. When I arrived, the place was ablaze with lights and the paper lanterns that Emmett had brought back from Germany. Esm had been delighted with them and I had to admit that they looked good, but I just wasn't in the mood for celebrations. Opening the door, I was almost knocked backwards by the smell of the Christmas tree, pine cones, holly and the mixed spices from some more of his purchases. They were small figurines, goblins, elves, cobblers and all sorts which when lit emitted plumes of spices into the atmosphere. I had wondered how he managed to bring so much back on the flight from Germany. The excess baggage charge must have been astronomical. Rose met me at the door smiling brightly, but I shook my head. I couldn't stand anyone else trying to cheer me up. Don't, Rose. Just don't. I'm not interested in talking about the ball. I was stupid to think that Bella would turn up. Why would she want to spend time with me? She has a long-term boyfriend who loves her. I shouldn't have listened to you or Asm. Now please, I need to pack. Jasper. I shook my head. No. I don't want to talk about it. I'm going to collect my stuff and I'm leaving. If I stay, I'd only ruin Christmas for the rest of you. Carlisle will be here tomorrow, you won't even miss me. She pulled a face, but there was something strange in the atmosphere and Emmett stood in the lounge grinning. If you don't stop feeling sorry for yourself, we probably wouldn't miss you. Now please, Jasper, will you just shut up for a minute and listen to me? I turned to go upstairs, but she grabbed my arm. Come here, idiot. She guided me into the dining room and lowered her voice. I know you're hurt because Bella didn't make it to the ball. How did you know? Has Esm been in touch? She didn't waste much time. Look, Rose, I don't want your pity. Jazz, she didn't make it to the ball because she couldn't. I frowned. Couldn't? Why not? How do you know? Because she rang here. Well, she actually rang the number on Esm's business card, but it got her through to the house. I frowned. She left me a message. Don't tell me she had other things to do. I don't blame her. Why would she want to spend a night with me when she could be with her fiancé? Rose burst out laughing. You were beginning to sound like a real loser. Bella didn't make it to the ball because she was involved in an accident. She was in the air. I stared at Rose, suddenly afraid. Is she okay? Witcher? What happened? Calm down and I'll tell you. Apparently, Bella's boyfriend wanted to talk to her, so she went for a drive with him. They argued and he took his eyes off the road. There was an accident, but don't worry, she's okay, a bit banged up, but okay. Thank God. So did she leave me a message? Not exactly. She checked herself out of the hospital, but she didn't have any money to get home and no one else she could ask for help, so she ran Renesmee. Hang on a minute. What about the boyfriend? Where's he? We didn't ask. She just said that it was over between them. So, what happened? Where is she now? Rose grabbed my arm. Calm down. Emmett and I went and picked her up from the hospital. She's upstairs asleep right now. She looked beat, so I helped her to bed and promised to call you. Unfortunately, you left your cell phone here, and by the time we got through to Esme, you'd already left. I broke free of Rose's grip and was up the stairs in an instant and checking on Bella. Now I could smell the faint odor of blood and antiseptic. It wasn't enough to cause my throat to burn, but it did explain the overpowering mix of scents in the house. Emmett and Rose didn't have as much self-control as I did. They were protecting Bella from themselves the best way they could. It had been quick thinking on their part. Bella looked very pale, so the bruise on her forehead looked even darker. She was sleeping peacefully, her hair fanned out on the pillow and a bandaged hand lying on top of the comforter. I didn't see the origin of the blood scent until she turned uneasily in her sleep and I glimpsed one heavily bandaged leg. Sitting down carefully on the edge of the bed, I laid my hand on hers and leaned in to kiss her forehead. Sorry, Bella, I was wrong. I thought you'd stood me up. Not wanting to disturb her, I closed the door carefully and made my way back downstairs. Rose was waiting for me, smiling gently. See? She's fine. She told us she has some broken ribs which they've strapped and a deep cut in her leg, but nothing serious. I don't understand why she didn't stay at the hospital if that's what the doctors wanted. She and Emmett exchanged a glance and he filled me in. It seems she was getting away from her boyfriend. He's a bit of an asshole. You know the type, doesn't know when to give up. She said the police might be looking for her too. She never got around to making a statement. We didn't want to press her too hard, she was pretty shaken up. It was great to see her again. Bella always did know how to make an entrance. I sat down on the arm of the couch shaking my head. I stopped watching over her for a few hours and she nearly gets herself killed. Emmett grinned. Yeah man. I guess you'd better take the job full time. It was good to see her again even under the circumstances. I wonder what Edward would say if he could see us now. Edward is the least of my worries. I'd like to know what the boyfriend is doing though. He had money and influence, he might well be trying to track her down. Emmett stood up looking a little uncomfortable. Yeah, I thought about that too. And I thought it might be best if we knew where he was for now. Just until we know what happened and if Bella's in any kind of trouble. So, I invited him to the house for the night. You did what? Where is he? Oh, don't worry. He doesn't know where he is. I don't think he's got a clue what's going on. I locked him in the wine cellar. Rose rolled her eyes. I think he's under the impression that he's been kidnapped and is being held to ransom. Emmett scratched his head. Yeah, now that might be my fault. I think I might have given him that impression. Anyhow, once we get the full story from Bella, I'll take him for a nice long ride and dump him out somewhere. Unless you want me to make sure he goes missing permanently. Emmett? We talked about that. I'm pretty sure Bella won't want his blood on her hands. He grinned. I guess not, Rosie, but a guy can dream, can't he? Thank you both for helping Bella. Rose stared at me, hands on her hips. You say that as if you expected us to ignore her plea for help. We don't hate Bella, Jazz. Not even me. Yeah, but you have to admit she was pretty freaked out when you answered the phone, Rosie. Rose glared at her husband, but I could imagine Bella's reaction when she called Esme for help and got Rosalie instead. The two hadn't exactly hit it off when they first met. Are you sure we shouldn't take her back to the ER? I mean, none of us knows how to look after someone who's been in an accident. Actually, I do. Or at least I spent some time with Carlisle's medical books. So long as she doesn't start acting weird or we can't wake her up, I think she'll be fine. Besides, are you going to tell her that we're calling an ambulance? I'd pay to see that. My money's on Bella every time. Emmett was finding this all too amusing. Does Esme know we're harboring a fugitive from the cops? Rose shook her head. Let her enjoy her ball. She'll find out soon enough. In the meantime, why don't you do us a favor and get out of uniform? If Bella wakes up and sees you like that, she's probably going to think she died or has brain damage. I went back upstairs and changed quickly before checking on Bella once more. As I opened the door, I heard her groan and curse, so she was awake. That was a good sign. She smiled as she recognized me and I sat beside her on the bed. Sorry about this. I wanted to get to the ball, but I think dancing is out of the question for a while. Don't worry about it. There's always another ball. How are you feeling? Sore and pissed. Mainly pissed though. I laughed. Only Bella Swan could walk away from a car wreck angry. Seriously though, do you think it was wise to walk out of the ER? Probably not, but it was either that or batter Patrick to death with my drip stand. Do you feel well enough to tell me what happened? She gave me an abridged version before yawning and I saw she was dead beat. Okay, well, you sleep. You're safe enough here and when you feel up to it we'll talk some more. I rose to leave but she called me back. Jasper, I am sorry I missed the ball. I was looking forward to our dance. I sighed, me too. Now sleep. She was sleeping before I got to the door and I stood to watch her. She looked so fragile lying there. I had come close to losing my chance tonight, but I wouldn't make the same mistake again. For now, while she was resting, I had other business to attend to. Emmett was waiting for me at the bottom of the stairs. Rose is going to keep an eye on Bella for a while and I thought you and I could have a few words with the asshole in the cellar. What did Bella tell you? Enough to know he likes to come out of any situation smelling of roses. He wanted her to lie about the accident to get him off the hook. She told him exactly where to go, but I think she expects him to keep trying. Stinking little rich kid doesn't like to lose. My knuckles stood out as I clenched my fists. If that was true, then the bastard needed to pay for what happened, but I would have preferred to hear the story directly from Bella. We should probably wait until Bella wakes up. We can hear the whole story then. Emmett stared at me as if I had just spoken in Mandarin. Dude, by the time Esme will be home and you know as well as I do that she is not going to be happy with us keeping a prisoner in the wine cellar. She'll probably make us let him go. Now, I don't know about you, but personally, I think he should be taught a lesson. Emmett was right. We probably shouldn't harm Patrick physically, but that didn't mean we couldn't frighten him half to death. Okay, let's go. I followed him to the cellar door as Rose came out of the kitchen with a glass of milk and a sandwich. She didn't ask questions, just smiled. These are for Bella if she wakes up. Oh, and boys, don't mess up the cellar, remember it's only a rental. We will continue in next part.